Justin Harris, longtime expert coach of top IFBB pros and Olympians, owner of the customized training and performance nutrition company Troponin Nutrition, bodybuilding and powerlifting champion. He holds a master's degree in atomic physics with an undergraduate degree in kinesiology.
Stick to injectables and pick an anabolic you prefer, Rebound, EQ, DECA, MPP, maybe Masteron, and run that at about % of your test dose. Now, if you pick Rebound, above I use a day, I don't know that it's beneficial long term. Short term, you're going to feel great, look great, be fuller, hold a lot of size and water. But long term, some of the structural issues guys get, the longer people are on tests or any aromatizing hormone, the lower rates of aromatization they get after 70% or more of your muscle size is not contractile tissue. It's not muscle fibers. It's sarcoplasmic water, glycogen. Once it became cheap enough where guys could run high doses year round, you're just getting the case we have now where thin skin, structural changes, flat feet. Guys will start losing their brachioradialis, triceps, their outer quad sweep, and I think that's all due to nerve compression and reduced neural innervation of those muscles. So they'll have an overall flatter look to the physique at some point way in the future, and that's counterintuitive because it gives a full look today. If you have high blood pressure, I can understand not wanting medical help and wanting to do things naturally, but if you have high blood pressure, get it treated. I like ACE inhibitors or ARBs to start because it gives you some proteinuria protection, which is really helpful. If you really need to eat, if you can't eat, if you do 25 or 50 milligrams of MK687, and then you do 500 micrograms of GHRP6.
The only other person I've heard with that much focus on sarcoplasmic training is Patrick Tour.
I don't want that to be true either because...
What's up, bro homies? So the new transparent shirt is finally out, and I just wanted to thank you guys so much because, to be honest, I don't know if I've expressed my thanks enough to you guys, but this podcast has probably been the most meaningful thing that I think I've ever created, I've ever really delved my time into, and I just wanted to thank you guys for giving me this opportunity because I really would not be here if it wasn't for all of y'all. And as cliche as it may all sound, the power to be able to have a voice and discuss these issues that we have all dealt with has been something that I think I felt a lot of fulfillment through because of just how much we've been able to connect with each other. So we finally have the shirt, the hoodie, and the pants all on this site. Basically, and the site is acons, AYKONS.com/collections/transparent. And 3 pieces there for you to get. So we try to make it as cheap as reasonably possible because the company that we work with does upcharge extra, quite a bit extra for the base price for shipping and handling and packaging. And this is all everything that we kind of needed to have implemented because, to be honest with y'all, I have never dealt with clothes before, never dealt with any of this crap before, so I have no absolute clue what I'm doing. But basically, because of the prices, I felt bad that the shipping was expensive, so I have a code Nile for you guys to use to get 10% off of everything that you're buying. So hopefully that kind of helps compensate just a little bit. But because of this, not having enough product is going to be an issue, and they'll be able to send out your product to you within 2 days, and then the shipping should be about 7 to 12 days, at least as according to the site. So maximum, you'll get your thing in 2 weeks. If you guys need anything, please feel free to reach out. I'll be here. I'll answer your questions. DM, this is the community, so I'll be here the entire time. Yeah, I really appreciate you guys because I wouldn't be here without you. So thank you guys so much, and let's get this ball rolling. Keep training hard. Look at that clean shave though, bro.
Yeah, I've had, you know what's funny? I've had a beard since like 2008 or something, and I never meant to. I was just lazy shaving one time, you know? And then, because back then, because no one really remembers, but through the 90s, people had goatees, but beards were like a 70s thing when I was a kid. Through the 80s, 90s, and even early 2000s, no one had beards. So I made a website, Real Men Have Beards, or Real Men Wear Beards, in like 2008, and we totally forgot about it, but we found it on the Wayback Machine, the Internet Archive, and we're just cracking up because it was just a stupid website with just, it was funny. I don't know what made us do it, but it's still on the Internet Archives, Real Men Wear Beards.
That's kind of fire. I saw you had a stash a little bit earlier too, right?
Yeah, I didn't get no one like that, so I don't have the face for it. I got big ears and big nose and no chin, and so you add that mustache on it, I just start looking like a weasel or something. I was hoping, I don't know if you can see the picture back here. I was hoping I could look like Tom Selleck, but I couldn't pull it off.
No, I think it was tough, dude. The Gen Zs understand. Plus, when I had a stash, and when I went to see, I saw my my extended family in the Philippines last year for Christmas for the first time. No, 2024 for Christmas for the first time in like 10 years. And they all said that I look like Tom Selleck with it too. So
All
I
right.
get that. I get it very much.
Yeah, the Tom Selleck thing I think started as a joke with my mother-in-law. Or it was something where like some you know, when we were younger, like in our 20s, someone of the next level, you know, in the generation was making a comment about how attractive someone was, and they said, well, he's good looking. I mean, he's no Tom Selleck, but he's. And so of course we've given her shit for that for 25 years. So
Fire. You had a lot of people requesting you to come on this podcast, by the way, bro.
oh man, I'm glad. I'm
A
pumped.
minute.
I'm actually nervous. I haven't been nervous for a podcast in forever, but
What?
I had a really good time last time. I thought it was I don't, you just, for whatever reason, the stuff we talked about just seemed to drift. People have even commented. I'd get locked into like the same 5 topics and responses. And to some extent, the body doesn't change. So you kind of do fall into the same things. But it felt like the last time I was on, we got to talk about some things from a different perspective that I didn't usually. So I've been excited for this.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Well, I mean, last time was really great and everybody really enjoyed it greatly too. Plus, I think that's part of the fun about this is that we don't really know 1,000%, right? So it's
Yeah.
kind of fun to talk about our theories and our perspectives because most of this comes from anecdotal experience, anyways. How
Oh,
many
yeah.
clients that you've dealt with over the course of the last how many last decade
Yeah,
or
and that's
so?
something. Well, actually, that's a good one thing I used to do. I can't anymore because most people in the sport know I'm a coach. But when I was younger, if anyone out there wants real information, I used to pretend I knew nothing. Even when I was prepping people and felt like I had a good grasp, if someone starts talking to you and you pretend you know nothing, they tell you what they really think. What I found is if people think you know something, all they do is tell you what they think they're supposed to say, which is all the standard dogma that. So, you know, and it's funny. I realize like that's how so much of that stuff gets passed down because everyone knows you're supposed to do this thing. It's like cutting sodium in contest prep in peak week. For the longest time, it was just like everyone knew you were supposed to cut sodium. You don't now, and we learn like that's a like a you know, like a risky path to go down. It's actually easier to not really blow your peak, but it's almost impossible to be full. But for the longest time, people kind of knew something wasn't right with that. But if you talk to someone and started asking about peaking, even if they believe, if they were like, you know, I don't think this sodium thing's right, they would still say that you should cut sodium in peak week because that was just what everyone said, and no one wanted to take the risk of being so outside the box. You know what I mean? So that just as a good rule, if you're talking to someone, pretend you know nothing. You'll hear some wild theories. I
Yeah.
remember one guy told me that. Yeah, I remember one guy said you should do like a double dose in tanning booth the night before a show to burn the top layer of skin off and thin your skin.
Whoa.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
obviously, you
wild.
get a sunburn. That's the worst look because it just draws. I mean, it draws water to the skin. That's how you heal from the sunburn. So, but you hear some crazy theories, but you hear some interesting things too. That you know, you can kind of get some tidbits from people like what they really think, not what they think they're supposed to say.
One of my favorites was John Meadows shaving his body several days earlier so that by the time he went on stage, it just looked a little bit grainy because of his stubble.
Yeah, I did the
That
same
was a
thing.
fire idea.
Yeah, same thing. And then, well, also shaving any irritant, any irritation to the skin is going to draw water to the skin. So if you shave and you nick or any, you are causing some level of, you know, in a normal face on a normal day, you're not going to see it. But in a peaked body with thin skin and dehydrated, it can make a difference. People used to be, because you used to have to tan yourself and the tanning wasn't as good. So there used to be whole protocols. I used to have people take a really, really hot shower, then get out and dry themselves off with a rough towel, like as hard as you can, to
Mhm.
kind of like just flake off all the top layer of skin, then get back in with a cold shower so your pores close up, and then apply your first coat of tan. Like little things like, you know, there's a lot of little things like that that you don't really have to do anymore. But yeah, the stubble thing, that's funny because I used to do the same thing. I never shaved. I always used clippers, kind of for that reason.
Clippers. Wait.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like beard clippers. I mean, it's practically,
Oh, okay.
you know, it's practically to. Is I got something on my chin? Or is that a zip? It's practically. I keep seeing. I'm like, is it like spilled food or? But no, that's all I'm gonna be. No, everyone's looking at it. But
You look great, bro.
yeah. Sorry, I got sidetracked. I don't remember what we were talking about now.
I do it all the time. The stubble and peaking. Honestly, actually, considering that we're talking about skin, what do you think about the whole Winstrol and white fish diet to reduce collagen synthesis. I don't know, is it collagen type 1 and 2, I think, specifically?
Yeah, that was what the fish, eating fish to thin the skin. Don't drink milk because milk will thicken the skin also. There's just so many things. I'm sorry, I had
Have you
to
ever felt
change
like
up.
that worked?
No, I mean, think about what you have to think scientifically. There has to be a mechanism of action, you know? So that's why it's good to understand physiology, because then, you know, the physiology is always going to be behind where bodybuilding and physique sports are at, because we're just at the cutting edge. But you get some basis of where you can understand, does this make sense or not? So let's look at fish. What in fish could thin the skin? What is the skin? It's just, you know, it's cells, it's tissue, it's like fat tissue. So there's not much you can change other than get low enough in body fat. And then, of course, over time, as you age, your skin will naturally thin, but that has nothing to do with fish, you know? I think what it was is just fish is so low calorie. If you're eating 6 ounces of even chicken breast, if you're eating 6 ounces of chicken breast every meal and you replace that with 6 ounces of white fish, you're cutting calories by what, 20, 30%? I mean, a big drop, you know? Protein's lower, fat's much lower, you know? So I think, like, before people, because you remember, there used to not be nutrition facts on food. A lot of stuff we had to guess at up until, was it 95, 94, something like that? So, like, the younger guys don't remember a time where you didn't know what the calories were in your food. So, like, you go back to, like, when that was prevalent, like 70s, maybe 80s, these guys, they don't know it. You know, you don't have a food label. And so I was eating 6 ounces of chicken and turkey, and now I'm eating 6 ounces of white fish. Well, I cut my calories by 30%. Of course, I'm going to lean out. My skin's going to look thinner. But that's really what's happening. You know, there would have to be some kind of, you know, some kind of compound in a fish oil. Yeah, and where there is, I mean, there kind of is, but not really. There's gamma-linolenic acid, which is somewhat found in fish. That's a metabolic uncoupler similar to DNP, but really like subphysiological.
Okay. No, considering whitefish and how lean it is, that makes sense, especially back in bodybuilding history. But geez, oh my God, dude. Sorry, I literally just arrived back from my trip from Thailand like late last night at like 11 p.m. man, and I
Do you speak?
I took
Were you not speaking English over there, or do you speak English over
I
there?
don't know how to speak anything other than English, except that I don't even
Okay.
hardly know how to speak English
I used to
properly.
have a buddy in college who would go, and I can't remember, Polish, I think. And when he'd first come back for a couple of days, he would just like, it wouldn't like mix words. He would just like, just stumble over them. It was always funny.
I just don't know how to speak any language. That's my problem. um yeah, but I'm on some this what is it called? Neuro, god damn it. I'm on this neuro lift that my buddy Mike from APR Health Solutions has been giving me the last couple months. That's pretty fire. It has like Neopeptide and bromontane on it though. So I feel like that's bringing me back, but I literally just sniffed it right before we got on here. So it's gonna take
I'm
a second.
big on nootropics. Nootropics are my thing now. You know, I'm not really competing anymore, so it's like the new cutting edge stuff for muscle growth is still interesting, but it's not as personally interesting. You know, like productivity and stuff with all my business stuff. I'm really into the nootropic stuff, right? That's why I made ATP. ATP is really like a passion project. It sells well, but I mean, it's not a direct pre-workout. It's really best as a mental stimulant, kind of a fat burner, but really like a nootropic. I made it for me just because I really like the nootropic stuff.
What are your favorite nootropics?
Right now, I do every morning. I do NMN, ATP.
Nice.
So basically, the compounds are NMN, 4-DMA-7/8 DHF, methylene blue, and then on days I need to be highly productive, modafinil. Big fan of that. The only problem is,
Big fan.
Yeah, the problem is
fire.
but the vasoconstriction is really strong, and then the dose tolerance curve is pretty quick. So you build tolerance pretty quick. But the reason I like it is because like things like Adderall and stuff, I like the focus, but it really changes the way my brain thinks. It makes me not want to work out. I think it probably solves all my ADD, so I don't need that stimulation. I don't like to work.
Yeah.
But modafinil gives me none of that. It's just kind of the focus with none of the. I still have ADD, I guess. Well, I just have energy. And then, of course, nicotine. That's
I'm a
been
big Nick
a
fan.
more recent thing for me. I was not against it, but I just never wanted to find out how much it helped, you know? I dipped like in college and football, but that's a big one for me now. I just really noticed the productivity, the focus enhancement. It just kind of seems like it shuts out all the like the ADD. It just really helps me kind of lock in.
The
I'm on like
focus is amazing with it.
yeah.
Right. I agree. I used to,
I mean, I'm on like 19 things, so obviously I'm locked in. But
yeah, same. I used to be a little bit against, I just kind of avoided it back then, just since the main association with nicotine was from smoking, but then realizing that, you know, low dose nicotine is actually pretty beneficial for long-term brain health.
oh yeah, for
I
sure.
kind of
Yeah.
just
Oh yeah.
realized like,
I've
honestly, it's
completely
just kind of fire.
yeah,
Cut my
nice.
saying.
Yeah. I've completely turned around on it. My reason was I just didn't want to think. I didn't want to like. It wasn't like I was worried I would get addicted and not be able to stop. I knew I could. Like it would suck, but I didn't want to have to deal with it. But now I know I don't have to deal with it because I don't want to stop.
Yeah. For real. Okay, talking about the skin thing though. So consider this. I was discussing this with Martin Fitzwater. So I think the idea behind this fish and Winstrol diet is because Winstrol reduces your collagen synthesis with certain types of collagen, and the reason for the strictly whitefish diet is because they're avoiding consumption of red meat and I guess chicken as well. So doing that, you're kind of missing certain, I guess, some of the collagen that you'd be consuming from those two
Yeah,
sources
and
of meat.
I like that because that's an actual scientific process because collagen is involved in like skin thickness. If you dramatically increase, that's part of why our skin thins with age. You know, it's partly why we have plumper skin when we're younger. So I can see that. I would need a research study to show that there's one that degradation of collagen below baseline levels correlates with thinner skin because I don't know for sure. I know that if you ramp up collagen, like we can't really affect it much, but when our body naturally does when we're younger, I know it happens. So I would need proof that the reversing that, you know, it seems like it would because it happens as we age. And then I just don't know how long are you doing this? You know, 6 weeks
Yeah,
before a show.
right.
I don't know how much it can change, and you know, but I love the thought. I mean, I do love the thought, and like the
Right.
Winstrol thing, my approach to Winstrol is not the collagen. It's spiking androgens at the expense of estrogen late in the prep.
Yeah. Plus, honestly, I feel like just the stress of me literally eating just only whitefish for how many 6 weeks is probably going to make me look worse, anyways.
Yeah, I know. I just take my thick
Fucking
skin up
miserable
there
dish.
and
Shit smells like
oh
smells like
man.
ass.
Oh, you don't remember? Do you
Not
remember
the
the
great kind of ass either. What's up?
Yeah, that's the bad kind. That's like the Orange Ruffy days. You ever hear the old Orange Ruffy stories?
Mm.
Because it's got that fat we don't digest. Well, guys would just be leaking oil out of their ass. That was another like 80s and 90s things, the Orange Ruffy thing. I'm sure there was at least one guy out there who convinced himself that he was shitting out his body fat when he looked in the toilet and saw the oil there. But I
What are your
think Jay
thoughts about?
Cutler's got a funny story on that actually.
Okay, yeah, I gotta ask him. Jay's like dad, honestly.
He's hot. He's great. Jay's like he's a bodybuilding ambassador. I mean, he's been like as a competitor. I loved him as a competitor, partly because he was kind of a blocky white guy, which I was kind of, you know, so I could see him like, you know, go all the way. And then, but even more so as a businessman, because he's just nailed it. And he's not afraid to try stuff too, which I think is a hard thing with business. Like he did stuff like Beats by Jay. You know, it's hard, you know, because you get on a win streak and you kind of want to, I imagine, especially when that win streak involves your personality and your name and your likeness, you kind of maybe don't want to take risks. But I love Jay because he's never not trying new things with business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know, it's amazing. It's something that I really take note of because I suck at business, so I have a lot to learn from him.
Yeah, well, we don't get taught. No one teaches us. Unless you grew up with parents who were in business, you don't learn any of it ever.
Yeah, for sure. Plus, I really do appreciate Jay for he's just such a kind guy to all of us young LA athletes. He's always there, very personable.
I always think there's some things somewhere suggest that they think our brains are meant to remember about 150 people, which is about probably what our tribe density was for a long portion of human existence.
Oh, that's sick.
But I think that like I always think like, man, because then he remembers everyone's name. And I know that 150 person mark is pretty strong with me you know, because it's like, because I'm forgetting everyone's name. But that's what always shocks me is, because that's hard for me. I think some people just are people that remember names, and I'm not one of those people. A face, yes. But so that always impresses me how well he remembers that. Because I wish, like, I've tried every trick they tell you to do, like you repeat something right after they say anything, but it doesn't matter. Names go in and out for me.
Yeah, I have a notes section in my, the notes app where it's just labeled names, and I just write people's names down afterwards as fast as I can. But to be honest, I'm not always super successful at it. It's the only way I'll be able to remember. And even then I don't remember. That's why I have it.
The nice thing with bodybuilding is you can reference people a lot by something people know them by. That big bicep. Do you know the big bicep dude with the hair? And they're like, oh yeah, Steve.
That's funny. So you're definitely known for putting on size on people. So I thought that would be something fun for us to discuss, especially since we all want to get fucking
Yeah, huge. I love that. Because it's the easiest. I mean, it's hard, but it's the simplest thing.
Mm-hmm. I feel like even though it's been the simplest thing, though, I've been discussing this more often the last few months with a lot of other coaches, like Chris Tuttle, Dom Super Sliced, and I've been seeing a few varying attacks and perspectives. So I'm very intrigued to ask you about it. Mm-hmm. I guess one of the things first, or actually, I think one of the easiest ways to dive into this would just be like, what is your plan of attack normally when you are like, okay, there's this guy and he's got everything, he's got conditioning on point. He's got his shape on point. He's got the discipline, but this guy clearly all the judges are just telling him he's lacking size. Yep. So what would you do first?
All right. I try with everything. I always say first principle, start with the minimum baseline. Can we get from nothing and start with something that we know can't fail? Because then you can trust the process. Even if if there's minutia and stuff we can optimize and be more efficient with as we go. But if we can go day one and if I do this, the only option is that there's a bigger me at the end of this. And so what can we do to guarantee bigger you? Well, one, we need to eat more food because body weight requires calories. All non-bone and even bone a little bit, but all non-water weight in the body is basically calorie body weight. It's body weight that can be converted to calories or food we ate that we use those calories to synthesize the tissues. So we know we need to eat more, but we can't get fat. So number one, we're going to try to find ways to clean up the diet, eat clean food, really focus our macros so we get the maximum bang macro-wise for whatever a calorie amount we have. And then we're going to try to increase that as much as possible, provided that we don't gain fat. That's the hard part. And you'll get bursts where you jump up pretty quick and bursts where you can't. But if we don't gain fat and we're eating more food, we must be gaining muscle. Then the next step is you in the gym, some trackable metric that you prefer. We need that we can track for progress. I like progressive overload. It's a slippery slope because you can get too focused on the weight and stop using the correct muscles. But long and short of it is if we take you now and we know we need to add size and say you're eating 3,000 calories a day and whatever, this strong. If now we give you a 6-month off season and now you're eating 4,500 calories a day with almost no body fat gain and you're 30% stronger, the only option is that you've added muscle. Was it the absolute most efficient way to add muscle? I can't guarantee yet, but we know that if we do this, the only option is adding muscle. And then we know also if we continue that long enough, eventually you'll add whatever amount of muscle you either need to add or are capable of adding genetically. The third component would be your cycle if you're on PEDs. And for that, it's so simple. It's hard to even say because people don't want to believe it. Stick to injectables. Use tests as a baseline. You don't have to, but I prefer tests as a baseline because for most people, this works best. Then pick an anabolic you prefer, a mild one like Primobolan, EQ, DECA, MPP, maybe Masteron, and run that at about 80% of your test dose. Now, if you pick like Primobolan, for most people, and I say most people, like a standard deviation, 85% of the population or something, for most people, if you do that, you won't have to worry about estrogen. So to round it up to make round numbers, let's say 1,000 milligrams a test, that would be 800 milligrams of Primobolan. That's all you need for AAS. You have to worry about estrogen. We're not using orals that kill appetite. We're not screwing up our blood work unnecessarily. We're basically doing the most milligrams we can for the minimal negative side effects in the off season, and then add GH, basically as much as you can. It's getting now where it's so affordable that guys are finding upper limits. Above 10 IUs a day, I don't really know that it's beneficial long term. It's beneficial short term. You're going to feel great, look great, be fuller, hold a lot of size and water. But I think long term, some of the structural issues guys get long term, I don't want to use the word, what I think is related. If you look up acromegaly and see the structural changes that occur with acromegaly, which is excessive growth hormone production, from a pituitary hormone, that's what it looks like. It looks like the structural changes we get as bodybuilders. So it's just that. Test anabolic, GH, and insulin. We can discuss that also. And then find a way to eat more clean food from the right macro ratios and get better in the gym. You can't fail if you do that. Now, we refine things beyond that, like start your off season from a very lean position, like ideally post-contest. I like the carb cycle. I like to utilize.
Do you mind if I interject before you go to carb cycling?
Absolutely, please do. Yeah.
Especially since carb cycling is a big discussion too. So, what would you have to say though about the what is it? The point made that if you look at HIV patients treated with say a bottle of Serostim, they don't see organomegaly.
They don't see organ growth, or well, for how long? And I'm not arguing organ growth at all. And actually, I would argue that is not the primary factor at all. It's hardly even a contributing factor, probably, for distended stomachs and the like bloated gut, GH gut, or all the stuff that people are concerned with. I think that is it's water and inflammation. It's what happens. Guys diet on high protein, low carbs. A lot of guys use painkillers and various things that slow gut mobility or cause constipation, So dieting and high protein on its own reduce the water flow to the colon. So we're already chronically dehydrated in the colon. We have low mobility, low motility, low movement. We eat a shit ton of food. We add growth hormone, which does cause water retention and brings fluid to that area, and inflammation restricts that whole process further. And you do that for 10 years, and I think it makes a big difference. I think that's where the ribs start to kind of go the wrong way, when your V-taper starts to go like this. Yeah. And that midsection goes like that. It's not so much the turtle shell. It's more like the widening, and that you can't really see, but they get that separation between their abs and their intercostals, kind of, you'll see late in some guys' careers. I think that's largely from all that. It's mostly just inflammation, water. I think largely correlated with the low colon fluid levels that everything we do causes, everything we do, and especially in peak week. And you can fix that with an osmolaric laxative like Dulcolax or Dulcolax increases mucus production by the colon. Miralax draws water into the colon. Yeah. Either of those, low dose. Yeah.
I remember you mentioning that last podcast, and I've utilized that in basically every prep since, dude. And it's been awesome.
Yeah. It's saved my ass. And people don't realize, like, if you were in like we had a human dissection class, so you get cadavers. One lady had about 40 pounds of undigested material in her gut. She was probably on painkillers as an old lady, really, really probably chronically constipated. But this is a 120-pound woman, 140-pound woman with 40 pounds of mass in there, rock hard mass. So you can only imagine what a bodybuilder eating in a day what she eats in a month, and doing that for a decade or more.
Okay, I got to interject again. And I love that you're giving like rough percentages. I think that's fucking awesome. Saying like, for example, like 80% of the people will like, whatever. Anyways, people understand what I'm talking about. But when it comes to, you said when someone has their test base, say that they're taking a gram, shoot for 80% of roughly, that gram roughly, as say that you're going to use Primo, NPP, whatever, etc.
I've always liked Primo. I mean, it doesn't cut estrogen too much. You can run at crazy high doses. The injection pain is the only problem.
Right. Yeah. So I'm a fan of Primo as well, but I've been seeing a lot of comments on, like I'll have some podcast reels posted regarding what one of my guests will openly discuss their cycle, which I really appreciate because, they don't have to do this, but there's a lot of people that seem to understand. And then there's an even greater percentage of people that seem to be very angry when they hear something that doesn't align with them or that they don't do themselves. And they're like, sorry, I'm having trouble saying this properly. I just I think it's a little,
Well,
It's crazy to me to see how many people get very mad when they see that someone has to titrate their primo dose high because of their level of aromatization.
Yeah.
So what would you have to say to somebody who, like, you know, I'm sure that you've dealt with clients who have varying levels of aromatization, because the variance is pretty crazy.
That's why I try to focus on standard deviations, because that's, for whatever reason, for most things, the way humans are, the bell curve distribution of genetics are such that there's typically a standard thing that most people fall into, and it's about, you know, around like IQ, the standard deviation is about like 84%. It's usually like around that. I think I don't remember what the exact definition for standard deviation. I should Google that again. It's been a long time, but yeah. So so in anything, like you pick, you know, any sport, like most people are going to throw a baseball with training in some pretty narrow range. You know, most people can hit most people hit a golf. Most people, 300 yards as a drive in golf is known as like a standard number for a reason, because about 85% of the population, that's about the best they'll be able to do ever. And so that's all it is. There's always going to be outliers. If you really aromatize, you might need test to be much lower than your anabolic. And there's ranges all over. Some guys have insatiable appetites and are like almost hyponatremic naturally and never hold water. And if you got a crazy appetite, never hold water, and maybe have incredible liver regenerative abilities, yeah, orals in the off season are great. But again, for the reason, I don't care what people run, and my client cycles look like a standard deviation. About 80% of people are somewhere around this range that I just referenced, but 20% of people are all kinds of different range. Some are test only. Some guys are doing no tests. You've had a lot. The standard difference is taking Primo or Masteron higher than test, or some low test variation, and I'm fine with that too. Whatever works for you best. I just want to be optimal for you.
Okay, cool. Right. Yeah, that's what I kind of wanted to hear. Is I think 20% gives a good idea, because I think there's a lot of people out there who believe that it's 0% that somebody may need. Yeah. Something such as like Darren Farrell or fucking Jack Eagles, or even Dr. Mike in the last podcast. These guys have to titrate up their primo or their EQ dose just substantially higher than their test. I think Darren Farrell may be like at 200 tests, 300 tests, and then his Masteron or his Primo is like at 1200 or 1300. Yeah. And still total dose that's high. But
to go back to standard deviation, that's the most standard deviation. And again, probably 80% of people who don't like the 80% of test dose for the anabolic, probably 80% of those people prefer a very low test dose, and they tend to be really high estrogen converters, really high aromatization levels. But that can drift also over time. I find that the longer people are on test, typically the lower, or any aromatizing hormone, the lower rates of aromatization they get after. So much so, and you can talk to people working at hormone clinics. I think it's pretty common now for people who are on PEDs long term, when they go on TRT, to have really low estrogen just from the TRT.
Wow.
Yeah, so because their body's just so used to very high test levels and aromatizing for that level of testosterone. So I mean,
just like the level of like metabolites that they have that go to estrogen are reduced. Does it like increase? Do you know where those metabolites increase? Like, is DHT higher instead, or?
I would imagine there's some natural suppression or inhibition in the production of the aromatase enzyme, sort of similar to the process that an aromatase inhibitor would happen, because we produce the testosterone. You kind of think, what's the body, the body's not thinking, but what does the body have processes to affect, So, androstenedione, androstenedione gets converted to, starts in cholesterol, goes through that whole DHA process, androstenedione converts to testosterone. Now, from your body sees all this testosterone in the blood. Well, it knows that when it sees 5 testosterone, it wants to make 1 estrogen. So that's what it tries to do. But now it sees 50 testosterone. It doesn't want to make 10 estrogen, because you'll turn into a woman. It won't be perfect. You'll make 9 estrogen and get gyno. But I think if you let that process occur long enough, and if your body spent the last 15 years seeing 10 times the normal testosterone levels, it's not going to aromatize at the same level it did before you ever cycled. I just don't, I think that seems, because you can only imagine if you're running, a gram of test a week for a decade, and you go back to 200 milligrams of test, it's hard to it's not a big stretch to imagine that your estrogen might be low in response to that, you know, because your body's used to creating aromatization rates for 10 times that amount of testosterone.
Gotcha. Cool. All right.
Don't quote me on that. That's just me talking. I mean, I don't have scientific. I gotta rethink how. Yeah, but that's my thought on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the anecdotal experience you have is pretty invaluable, though, man. You've been in this field for a really fucking long time.
Oh, man, I've done, since before it was a field. That's what I always say when there wasn't coaching. I called myself a personal trainer or a nutritionist for the first few years. There was no online coach. It wasn't really online. I mean, it was late 90s, early 2000s.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Back when we were just doing emails, eh?
Yeah. I had a client in Clinton Township who handed me Polaroids at the gym for check-ins.
No way. That's kind of sick.
Yeah, because that was maybe 2003. If you remember back then, like loading a photo, it would go line by line. And so it would still sometimes, like if they didn't have a good camera or it didn't convert to the right, you know, JPEG or PNG, and it would be a large file, it might take 10 minutes to open a photo. So that's how long it was. It was a long time ago.
That's hilarious. Just like how long it took me to load up RuneScape.
Yeah.
Good times. So I guess what is your perspective on, I think a better way to ask this would be, how hard do you push someone when it comes to their surplus as soon as you start this off season?
Okay. This is a tough question because there is no one answer. It's different for everyone, but it does follow trends. The trends would be early in a career, so you're not at pro level size for whatever division. You're still looking to add large amounts of body mass. So early in a career, when you've come out of a contest prep, you are the most ideal situation for anabolically driven muscle growth than you ever will be. You're not in a good position hormonally naturally. If you came out of a contest prep off gear, you know, you'd have suppressed testosterone, but it's the one time where we have like our estrogen's crushed, our appetite sky high, our insulin sensitivity sky high, you know, everything. We are so lean in body fat that we could gain 10 pounds of pure body fat and still be lean. And so you get so there's that. You get that period. So I'll look to push pretty high to where we are almost to the previous off season's peak calorie count within several weeks after contest. And then it levels off and sometimes even drops. Now, later in a career, like someone like Brandon Curry, he's not looking to add 30 pounds of muscle. It's not going to happen at this point. So his off season is totally different. There's almost no surplus, you know? Okay. So if you just give me a number, say all things equal, we would just have two people. They're not post contest. They're not in rebound. They're just middle of the off season. It's pretty low. We're talking like 100 calories a day on average. But then the way I carb cycle, those 700 calories across the week are put into 4 or 5 days and pulled so it's really close to 1,000 calories spread over 4 or 5 days, because our low carb days that we don't train are slightly hypocaloric, usually even in the off season. So our training days are much higher. So so like roughly like 700 to 1,000 calories a week, spread out specifically depending on the client where we think that those calories would be most optimal.
Do you feel like you're one of the first people that brought that type of carb cycling to the space? Because that's something I love doing too, having those rest days.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm certainly not the first one to like change the amount of carbs they eat. So I don't want to pretend like I invented anything at all, because I didn't. But I did come across the idea on my own. I mean, I'm sure I'd heard of carb cycling, but the way I do it now, I was fully mine, because I can tell you the thought process I had. It was thermodynamics. It was we eat some number of calories and we burn some number of calories. If we eat more than we burn, those calories stay in the body. They can stay as glycogen, as muscle, or as fat. So I thought, okay, what can we do? How can we hack that system? Well, we can hack those 3 ways. So that was the carb cycling. So I said, well, okay, on days I'm not training, let me take carbs low and I'll deplete those calories from the body. But because they're from carbs, they'll mostly come from glycogen. Maybe I'll get a little bit of fat loss. That'd be great, but I don't need it. That's the benefit. That's the great part of carb cycling. I don't need it, because that glycogen depletion, I can then over calorie on the training days. And so if I'm depleting 50 calories of carbs, or 100, just for round numbers, 100 calories on every low day, and I have 2 low days a week, that's 200 calories a week. I can add, that's 50 grams of carbs I can put post workout at some point in the week for no net calorie gain, but I'm putting them at a time when muscle protein synthesis is more likely. And so basically, yeah, so what I'm trying to do is I'm saying we have 1 calorie count that we burn calories, we eat calories. Let me play with the macros to see if there's a way I can trick the body into maximizing the amount of those calories that are stored as muscle and glycogen instead of fat. And that's really all it is. It's bad. It's most effective in fat loss, but I think it has value in muscle growth also.
Okay. I remember you saying before in a previous podcast that there's only so much time when it comes to the growth phase. What exactly do you mean about this?
Well, adding muscle is hard. How much bigger are you than last week? How much bigger are you than Christmas? Anyone out there, anyone listening right now that you've been killing, like you wake up and all you think about all day is how to add muscle. Every meal you eat, you're timing your supplements, timing your PEDs, like your whole day is centered on your workout. Everything is about adding muscle. Think back 3 months. I mean, maybe you did, or 2 months. How much muscle have you added? And that, what do you get in off season? 5 months, 6 months? So if you can't even see a difference in 2 months, we're already at 30% of the off season. So it's just muscle growth is hard. Even when it's fast, it's very slow. So my view is, so I don't like building up cycles. I like to spend as much time as possible at optimal for whatever the goal is. So in the off season, I want to spend as many weeks as possible optimally growing. And that's kind of where that healthier approach to cycling comes from. Because we can run longer cycles at higher total milligrams if we're avoiding orals, we're avoiding Tren, we're avoiding harsh androgen, we're avoiding, I don't like high dose Masteron, but so basically we're pushing the most amount of milligrams we can for the minimal negative effect on the body, and we want to extend that every day of the off season that we can, provided that we can enter prep, fresh, probably after a cruise, and healthy with blood work that will allow us to push and prep. And then prep is when we throw the kitchen sink at it. Half the reason we do that approach in the off season is because we can essentially get maximal growth. And if it is less, it's not much. And maybe 99% of 100% growth, but we get to start every contest prep knowing that we can take everything that's ever been made and come out relatively safe because we're entering prep with good blood work, which most people don't do.
Right. Normally people take their health phase after prep.
Yeah. So
do you not do the health phase after prep?
I do, but we don't need the health phase before prep because we haven't done it. What is naturally bad about testosterone? It's just the androgen. So you're going to get cholesterol variations, reduced HDL, worse than LDL. You're probably going to get some red blood cell increase, but that's about it. Your liver enzymes aren't really going to be impacted because our estrogen is relatively controlled with the anabolic. You shouldn't have a ton of water retention, so you shouldn't have really bad blood pressure. You're not overly stressing the kidneys or the heart. And so we're not doing anything to ruin blood work other than what you would do basically with TRT, to a higher extent, but that levels off. That's a logarithmic graph. You take a baseline person, you put them on 200 milligrams of test, they're going to see changes in cholesterol. You put that 200 milligrams on 1,000 milligrams of test, yes, there are going to be changes to cholesterol, but not that much more over 200 milligrams compared to zero, Like you start spiking androgens and those changes happen pretty quick, but they don't level off, but they stop increasing so dramatically. So yeah, so we kind of basically we get to, that's the whole approach to that. I'm not looking to be healthy, it sucks, but I understand the way the sport is. The sport is the sport. This allows me to get the most milligrams in my clients in the off season for the most number of weeks with the minimal risk to health. And so for me as a coach, if I can shove the most gear in them without hurting them, that's ideal. And so that's really the approach. That's where that off-season approach comes from. And then we just try to spend as much time there as possible. And since we're not doing anything that we know, we're not running a gram of Tren, we're not doing Halo, we're not doing anything crazy, Adrol, Anadrol, or Debulk, just doing basic stuff. So we can push pretty hard all off-season and be relatively safe.
Okay. What about insulin sensitivity? What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's why that's the prep. That's why even if you don't compete, I think everyone should do a hard diet about once a year just to restore insulin sensitivity and basically restore insulin sensitivity, drop body fat, reset the whole aromatization thing. Because when your body fat's higher, you produce more aromatization enzymes, aromatase enzymes. So you will aromatize more as body fat increases. So you kind of reverse that. So the diet just resets everything. It's basically like waking anew, fresh from the womb, ready to grow. If you don't do that, your growth is going to be severely blunted. Once body fat gets above 10 or 12%, growth just really starts getting blunted pretty strongly.
Okay. So I totally agree with that. And one of the reasons why I'm asking this, though, regarding insulin sensitivity throughout the off season, before you end up doing one of these cuts, for example, is since Chris Tuttle and Dom Superslice are advocates of maintaining or at least minimizing your body fat gain, seemingly in respective more than some of the older school coaches, like my coach, Patrick Tour. And I'm not completely sure where you stand on this, because I feel like you've said things that seem to, I think, seem to resemble what Patrick has said, but you also do understand how important insulin sensitivity is. So I guess, where do you feel like you stand on this?
Well, ideally, no body fat. I mean, we call it bodybuilding, and we think of it as a muscle sport, but it's really a body fat sport. I mean, you can turn pro under 200 pounds at my height. You can. I mean, guys do have as light heavies at 5'10" all the time. So you don't need to be a mass monster to be a professional bodybuilder at all, even in men's open bodybuilding. But you absolutely need to be shredded. So I don't like to get anyone fat. And I don't know if I think, like, because I'm known as a size guy, and I think you get lumped in with size guys, and I think a lot of size guys get known for just weight at weight's cost. I don't really look at the scale. You can ask my clients. They check in with weight. Weight is always a secondary metric for me, because it never tells the truth. Weight just tells me how much water you're holding in that moment. You drink 32 ounces of water and step on the scale, you've added 2 pounds of muscle. Good job. No, you didn't. You just weigh more because you haven't peed yet, So what I use the scale for is a secondary metric. Like, I've talked about this before. If I won't give away all the secrets, but if a client checks in and they're kind of flat, but they're watery, and you look and their weight is down a pound or two, but they're watery, they're sick, or they're going to get sick, because there's not much else in the body that causes inflammation enough to be visibly watery that burns through, because typically when you're watery, your weight goes up. So if you're watery and you've burnt through all your glycogen and stuff, the body's fighting something. So that's where weight comes in handy. It's kind of like, oh, these pics look weird. Why are you watery and flat looking? Okay, you're going to get sick. But yeah, I don't like to get people fat. I don't. But if you're eating in a surplus and you want to maximize the number of calories that get stored as new muscle, you're never going to get it perfect where there's 0.0 grams of fat also. You just can't be perfect. We try to minimize it, but I don't try to get my guys fat. I mean, you can look like Ben Pollack added 80 pounds in a year. Find one picture where he's fat in that 80-pound gain. You won't. David Lamartina gained 100 pounds over 3 years. He got pretty big, especially the first year, because that was that first big jump with the rebound. But you won't find pics where he doesn't have abs at any point over that 100-pound gain. Okay.
What do you normally do post-show?
I need new first competitor, pro. I mean, it's completely different for every person.
Let's say a new pro.
I
feel like that's a good average. Yeah, for this.
Good
podcast.
Average? Man, well, you can hang out with different people than me.
No, for this for this podcast, I have some I have some Olympians, and I also have some.
You get like a little. Your view of things gets skewed when you're only talking to top athletes. But that's different, because it's pretty boring. They're probably not looking to add a ton of size. If they were one of those guys that turned pro as a light heavyweight, and we know they need to add at least 20 pounds even to be competitive at 212, then we're going to go full rebound. So I'll just give that approach, because that's the fun one. We need to add size. Judges say you have to add size. We have 1 year. We have to add size. We have to do everything perfect. We don't want to waste a day. You get off stage, eat whatever you want that night, eat whatever you want the next day. Then the next 3 to 5 days, depending on if you're a pro, it's going to be 5 days. The next 5 days are all high carb days from our contest diet, which will be very high carb, because my high carb days, if anything, go higher in fat loss diets, higher in carbs. So you do 5 of those. Each day gets a full free meal at night to end the night. Your last meal of the day, pig out, get it out of your system.
Ooh, sounds great.
After those 5 days, it's now the next Saturday. It's been a week post-show. So now we are locked in, and we're on an off-season diet of clean eating, 1 cheat meal a week. And your cycle is what I just said, tested and anabolic, but at about 60% of your peak off-season dose from the previous year. Because you don't need much, because your insulin sensitivity is so high, your appetite's so high, your motivation's so high, and more importantly, your water retention is so high. If we blast androgens and GH right after a show, you're going to blow it up so much that by week 2, your lower back's too pumped to work out properly, and we ruin the rebound. So we basically hold GH for the first week, 10 days, sometimes 2 weeks. And then through the whole rebound, doses are only about 60% of off-season. And that will last 4 to 6 weeks usually. And then typically, then we do our health phase. And then we're TRT, and I say, and I tell guys, go TRT. I say, you can do whatever you want. I'm not, it's your body. But if you go TRT right now, in 4 weeks, we can get blood work that says you're ready to start the off-season, and we can blast the next 5 months and feel pretty safe about it. If you do one like a bodybuilder TRT where you're doing 600 milligrams of test or something and your blood work's still fucked in 4 weeks, then we just set our off season, so take that one step back over those 4 weeks. You're not going to add size, even on 100 milligrams of test a week. In a month, any size you lose is going to be fullness that you're going to gain within 5 days of being back on test and GH.
Yeah.
And then we do our off season. Then it's 5 months of push, basically.
That 4 to 6 weeks before the health phase sounds real appealing, bro.
Man, if you only get a couple of them, because once you've added the size, once you're big, you don't get that rebound. But you can, I don't know how many times, I shouldn't have to say it. You can look client after client after client of guys that were middleweight, then heavyweight, then turned pro as a super, in in a 3-year time. And it's all from this. Now, once they get there, once they're 260 pounds on stage, you're not getting 50 pounds of growth out of a rebound, obviously. But you get 2, probably 3 shows where you can change the course of your progress if you nail that month after the show properly.
Okay, got it. This is so dope to talk about. So, I guess, what do you have to say about ramping up volume and training that quickly after the show?
Oh, we're not hitting it hard. You're basically just having fun doing a pump workout first couple weeks. We're not looking to do, and I don't want to, because it's not like a hill I want to die on. And I'm known as someone who liked to train heavy, especially, but hard also. And I came from sports and I really took pride in, especially high intensity and training very heavy and hard. But I'm really, and this is someone who, no one wanted training to be the deciding factor more than me, to where if you train harder than someone, you're going to beat them. I wanted to do that more than anybody. I don't believe that. I think for most people, we're all training some level above the minimum requirement to maximize muscle growth. And once we're above that point, everything after that is PEDs and nutrition. The only way you can affect growth after that is with PEDs and nutrition. And unfortunately, I think that level of training volume and intensity is probably quite a bit lower than we wish it was. And I think that explains why so many genetic freaks will be known for training just like pussies, but winning pro shows. Yeah. And I think what it is, it is their genetics, but it's that their genetics place that minimum requirement a little bit below ours, and they actually kind of try to find that level, They actually do train that light, and they have the genetics where, so if, just to make numbers, say 5 hard sets was what one standard deviation would maximize muscle growth. I have no idea what the number is, but just for make a number, then those guys, they might be able to do 3 medium sets and get the same growth as you get from 5 hard sets. Now, the problem is, I believe that neither of you benefit as far as muscle growth, at least for absolutely as much as you wish you did, from 10 hard sets, if that makes sense. So person A, decent genetics, person B, great genetics. Decent genetics can do 5 hard sets and max out growth. Decent genetic can do 3 medium sets and max out growth. Neither of them really get that much benefit from 10 really hard sets, other than adaptations. Like, I'm sure there's adaptations to muscular structure. There's probably some because muscles attach to each other, and there's micro tears and little tendon damage. And I think that probably does contribute to the appearance of conditioning and separation to some extent. But that's my hill I'm not willing to die on, because I don't want it to be true. But I think, unfortunately, I think training is for performance, but PEDs and nutrition are for hypertrophy, basically.
Okay. But at the same time, performance is also related to how much you're going to gain, right? Your hypertrophy.
That's the problem. That's what I really struggle with, because I don't necessarily believe it. I think you become a better athlete, stronger, faster, more explosive, if you're doing a sport where it's like really precision movements, obviously with training, you get better at those precision movements, archery, basketball, whatever, golf. But as far as muscular adaptations to where a lot of them in the sports we do is sarcoplasmic, not actually myofibrillar adaptations to muscle structure. Mm-hmm. And I think that is predominantly affected by PEDs and nutrition. And I don't want it to be true, and it's not a hill I'll die on. But here's kind of how I stumbled on it. I always do first principles. I was just thinking, I was like, how much do I need to train? And this is after I stopped competing and my training had gotten worse and worse and worse. And my physique wasn't deteriorating despite not eating perfect,
Bro, I'm pretty shocked at how maintained my physique has been, and I have not been training for the last month because of this hair transplant and going to.
So you're where I was, and so I start thinking oh, how is this possible? And so then I just tried to do a thought experiment. I said, okay, I've never trained. I go in and once a week I do one set of bench press. My chest is going to grow compared to not training. Well, now if I go in once a week and do 2 sets of bench press, probably going to grow more than 1 set. 3 sets more than 0 sets. But then I started thinking well, if I'm at 6 sets, if my kid's life was on the line and they were like, your whole family's going to burn, if you have to make a decision right now, will that 7th set, if you do 1 more set, can you guarantee your chest will grow more than if you only did 6 sets? And I'm like, fuck, I don't know that I could guarantee that. And that's 6 sets. I don't know where the number is. I don't know if it's 1 set, 2 set, 100. I don't know where it is, but I think we can all
sure too.
Yeah, you can kind of when I started questioning it was a much lower workload and intensity than I thought I would. If you would have just asked me, I'd have been like, I'll start thinking, I'll be like, well, it's got to be 10 or 12 sets. Hard to 8 sets to failure probably. But then if I really thought about it, I was like, fuck, if I went in and warmed up and just killed it on bench, did 1 killer set on incline and a set of flies, that's 3 sets. I probably got how much would a 5th set or 6th set or, so I just kind of realized man, I feel and I've learned it myself as I've trained less and less and my physique seems to be much more impacted by the PEDs I'm using and the nutrition I'm eating than my training intensity, as much as I don't want that to be true. Obviously, if you're in sports, training is everything, because you have to perform. But if it's how you look when you perform, I think it's mostly food and PEDs, unfortunately or fortunately.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I think it's still important. We still say the disclaimer that all 3 is absolutely necessary for you at our level. I
need to clarify that because someone in the comments always misses that. Obviously, no one's turning pro in bodybuilding without training at least a little bit. Obviously, all 3. I just think as far as the roundest look of competitive physique sports, I think is diet and PEDs impact that more than training. Obviously, you have to train, but we are all already training. So given that we're all already training, already eating, and already using PEDs, I think focusing on those 2 will be the biggest impact to progress.
It's cool. I find that very interesting that you mentioned that you the only other person I've heard really put that much focus on sarcoplasmic training has been Patrick Tour. So I think it's pretty cool that you brought that up.
I don't want that to be true either. Believe me, I don't like that because I love training. I took deep pride, especially in the heavy compound movements. I loved feeling strong. I love feeling at the end of the day, I can't affect my genetics, but I felt like after a workout, I love that feeling well, this is out of the equation. I worked hard enough. I worked harder than anybody. Probably not, but you believe that. Yeah. So but 70% or more of your muscle size is not contractile tissue. It's not muscle fibers. It's sarcoplasmic, other stuff, water, glycogen, everything else. So if you had 2 piles in a garage, you had a pile of dirt and a pile of, I don't know, something, clay, and when one of them was more than twice as big as the one, and you'd be like, well, yeah, I can make a bigger difference on this pile. It's huge. I can change that a ton. This is only a little bit. So
right. Well, if this is all true, then I feel like it also kind of means that the pump may be less pointless than a lot of people are saying these days.
Oh, yeah. That I think at some point we will find absolutely. I think that's true, and I think the reason we haven't yet is because if you're funding research, you're involved with some university or sports program. Do you care how much sarcoplasmic hypertrophy an athlete has? Not really. If anything, it probably harms them in performance. So all like training research is all focused on performance results, contractile strength, time under tension, endurance. It's hard to track actual changes in sarcoplasmic growth from, a training stimulus like you would in a research study.
Gotcha.
Which I want to say, but one thing I'm super excited about with Troponin IQ is eventually that is the goal, is that we'll have all this data, we'll have all this inputs of people using these, asking for training programs, Troponin IQ, putting this kind of training program, this kind of diet. And so we'll be able to go back and actually see, okay, I can say plot users who followed a carb cycling diet from Troponin IQ at least 60% of the time over the last 5 years. And now compare that, find the group that did a high volume sarcoplasmic routine at least 60% of the time versus someone who did a low volume, high intensity routine. So we basically, we normalize for the diet. We normalize we know compliance is good because they're on the app talking about it. They're athletes, they're bodybuilders. And we say, how much visual changes did we have? Because we'll have the images also because we have body scan now. So we'll be able to see actually how much volume affected growth compared to high intensity, and in like 100% compliance individuals even, because we'll be able to retroactively do it.
With peptides growing substantially in the last couple of months now, and honestly, we could list out a long list of all the peptides that have helped us. You guys have heard these peptides and these research chems in the podcast maybe a million times. Peptides I've used from APR such as BPC 157 and TP 500 for soft tissue healing, retatrutide and other GLPs, mitochondrial support such as SS31, MOTC, 5-amino-1Q, methylene blue, SLU. There's a bunch of others. Obviously, the list goes on and on. One of my favorite things, though, that I've been utilizing, such as during my last prep, that has allowed my blood work to come basically pristine, aside from slightly elevated liver enzymes at about 60 and 130 1 week after the show. And this is after a leg day because my dumbass doesn't want to skip a training day. These are probably the things that I think are the most important. So this includes like your injectable glutathione, injectable or even just normal NAC, liposoluble glutathione, GI aids such as oral BPC, oral TB, KPV. A lot of these things have probably been very substantial in reducing oxidative stress and keeping all my blood markers down, and thus keeping me as basically healthy as fucking possible that you can be while you're bodybuilding. So I couldn't be more thankful to Mike for literally showing me the ropes and also providing me with all of these things. Even the compounded supplements that he creates for blood pressure and reducing oxidative stress on all your organs, including your cardiovascular system, your liver and your kidneys. All of these that he creates have been very substantial, honestly. So you can find any of these at his site, aprhealthsolutions.com. And he has offered me a code Nile for you guys to use, which will offer you a 15% discount off of all of that as well, since he knows that the codes are a little bit just for the homies, If you guys end up using those and you like him, please let me know. Shoot in a comment, just give me a DM or something. And if you ever have any problems or any questions, I'll be here too. This is a community for me, even though I don't have a fucking Discord because I'm lazy as shit, but I fucking should make one. So love you guys. And, keep training hard. How come you're not the biggest fan of Masteron?
Oh, I love Masteron in prep. It's my favorite prep compound.
But why not in the off season, I guess?
It's just because it's my favorite prep compound. So we're running it all off season. It's not a new thing to add. And I just don't, if it's when I say it's not my favorite, it might be my favorite depending on the person. If you convert estrogen, if you're like a major converter, you're always running high estrogen, then Masteron might be the anabolic we need in the off season, or EQ but it's really just that. It's just a harsh androgen. It's a little more, too much androgen and too low estrogen, but it's splitting hairs. It's not like I'm against it. I mean, I probably 20% of my guys, again, there you go, standard deviation, probably 20% of my guys are using that Masteron. And a lot of guys, because it's a big thing in the last 5 years. A lot of like influencer guys are hyping the high Masteron, low test, I see, or go through phases. And the truth is, if you're on enough gear of good stuff, with a decent mix of, androgens and keeping estrogen suppressed, and you're using GH, most cycles are pretty close. So really, like, they are milligram for milligram more, like there's difference, but they're close within the ballpark anyways. And so that's my cycle approach. The only difference is it's just we can get the same number of milligrams with less risk to health. That's all it is. So okay. So there's nothing against Masteron. It's my favorite prep product, and so I like to save it for prep.
Yeah, you have the same reasoning as I do for not using Masteron in the off season. It's just like I'm using that like almost my entire prep. So
Yeah.
why would I want to use it year
Yeah,
round?
it's kind of because I like it because it does a lot of the stuff that Tren does again without as many issues. So we can push. I'm always looking like what can we really like really push with minimal risk, And so the off season, that's why we do that. We can throw. I mean, because what 50 milligrams of anadrol a day, or even 100 milligrams of anadrol a day is only 700 milligrams a week. We just talked about 1,800 milligrams like it wasn't even a crazy cycle. If I told you someone's taking 100 milligrams of anadrol a day, they'd be like, yeah, that's a lot of anadrol. That's only 700 milligrams a week, So I'm just always thinking, what can I get the most milligrams in for the most positive effect with the minimal risk? And in prep, we can run Masteron longer, basically the whole duration of prep at much higher doses. We'll still use Tren with most people, but we're not relying on it as much because Masteron is our high antigen, aromatase inhibitor, hardening compound.
Mm-hmm. What do you normally aim for with a Tren? I guess this would be dependent though on the person's size and experience.
Yeah, and everyone's different. Have you come across any of the watery Tren guys? Tren's wild because some guys will take it and they look different by the hour, and some guys look like they took D-ball. It's like
yeah.
And I think it's dopaminergic or prolactin in action. I think Tren, and it can, and because Tren gives false readings on estrogen. Tren's kind of weird, and I'm not a chemical expert. I went through a phase, long ago when I started where all this stuff was interesting, but it hasn't been a passion. So I might say some things that have been understood better since I last read on them. But yeah, it's I can't. So some people take Tren and just look great. Some people, I think, get really high prolactin conversion, which can be corrected with a dopaminergic, but then those aren't fun things to take. Those they make you feel sluggish and tired and can have sexual side effects. So it really depends. If you're someone who responds incredibly well to Tren, like I said, I understand the sport. You're paying me to win a contest. If you respond incredibly well to Tren, we will push the Tren, win the show, and then we'll deal with it. We'll make you healthy after the show. That's why we do the health phases. If you don't respond great to Tren, 0 to whatever is needed, 150 a week. I don't ever really like going more than 300 a week. I mean, I've seen guys run a gram year round for decades, for me, not that long, but I know powerlifters that were running a gram as a base long term, who knows how long, multiple year periods for sure.
Right. It's so person dependent, and I think people really forget just how dependent, how much variance. My friend Steve Cochran, for example, can run Tren year round and hardly sees any difference in his blood work, and he feels great on it. I, on the other hand, I run 150 for a prep, and I just get more angry on the road.
I got a story like that. My first cycle ever was Finaplex pellets with a buddy in college. Because for the longest time I was not going to use anything, and so by this time I'd been training like 8 years, and finally just decided to make the switch. Whatever. Once we figured out what Finaplex was and animal kits, and this is like 99-ish maybe, he absolutely morphed like by the day. I mean, he went from we were natural guys that were really serious about training in college and looked like we worked out, but we didn't look like bodybuilders. To 3 weeks later, this dude looked like he's ready to win a goddamn bodybuilding contest. And I was a waterlogged mess with gyno. I got gyno from my first dose of Tren.
Damn.
My first cycle, from the prolactin. My prolactin was off the charts. I remember getting blood work thinking my estrogen would be high because I didn't know anything then. I was 19 or 20. I was 22 or 22. But I didn't know that much. So I was expecting estrogen to be high, and it wasn't. And I didn't even think to look at prolactin at first. Eventually, I realized that, and I was like, oh, shit, what is that? And because back then people were talking about progesterone, anti-progesterone pills for Tren gyno, not anti-prolactin, which is dopaminergic. And so that was before like bromocriptine and cabergoline. And because the first thing I stumbled across was it's a blood pressure medication, starts with a C. It's a blood pressure medication that can because that whole dopaminergic prolactin pathway is related to GH also, the pituitary gland. And this is a blood pressure medication people were doing to try to stimulate growth hormone production, but it also suppressed. It was also dopaminergic, suppressed prolactin somehow. God, it started with a C. Why can't I think of it? It used to be a common thing. Anyways, and then by researching that and like the pathway and dopamine and prolactin, I think I came across like bromocriptine, and by then it was starting to make like other people were talking about all over the internet. And then I think I think bromo was first. Well, the blood pressure was first, then bromo, then Caber, and then now Prami's out. Sorry, I didn't mean to get off on that sidetrack at all.
Yeah. No, that helps. I have just seen I've seen so many guys that have caused themselves gyno from just a very, very short stint of combining Tren and weed because they're just not really paying attention to their prolactin levels. Yeah, and
it'll hit quick. If you are predisposed to it, it's not like you take testing a gyno, you might have 3 months of slight sensitivity before anything hard forms. With me, it was like 8 days. And I was like, oh, come on. First cycle. Not only did I would have taken the gyno if I looked like a bodybuilder. My buddy's ripped, gained 30 pounds, lost all his fat. I just got gyno.
So, since you don't do orals in the off season, I'm assuming you're not the biggest fan of Anadrol and Superdrol.
Depends. See, all these things, all these are absolutes. And in my mind, I kind of always default in this case to a male open bodybuilder. If you're a power lifter, that's completely a power lifter. We're oral focused, especially if your power lifter has to make a weight class. We might do an oral only cycle specifically to kill appetite and get all this super watery strength retention stuff we get from the orals. So it really depends, So no, it depends on the situation. If I have a guy, so unique cases, if I have a guy who really struggles to add size, has an insane appetite, and must be born to be an alcoholic because no matter what we do, his liver enzymes are always normal, even after a leg workout, whatever. In that case, yeah. I mean, the stuff works. If you can take Anadrol and eat and not kill your blood, not affect health, absolutely. But that's the problem, though, is, most people, most of the time, if they take Anadrol, eventually their appetite's going to suffer and their blood work's going to suffer. And eventually that bites you,
Right. Seth Rossi talking about 4 Anadrols a day just makes it sound so fun.
Yeah. What's funny with all the stuff, anyone who's been in the sport long enough has tried crazy stuff, but none of them are doing it permanently. So whenever you hear about a guy doing a internet series on taking 5 grams a week or 10, whatever he's doing, it's a series. If you follow that guy for 5 years, you'll find that he drifts into the same range we all drift into, which is not baby doses, are legit full cycles that pose serious risk. And 20 years ago would have got you called crazy for being so high dose. But those are kind of the standard, and they were the standard back then too. People just lied more. But you'll see, at the end of the day, you don't get in the sport because you're normal or you worry about how long you're going to live or you worry about harming yourself. And so if crazy doses worked, we would know because stuff's not that expensive. I would do 1,000 I user. I could afford 1,000 I user growth a day. I own multiple businesses. I would do if that worked and I could be Mr. Olympia and I wanted to be Mr. Olympia, but it doesn't work that way. And you'll find anyone that tries those things, they don't do that for their career. They tried it as a fun little phase, but they kind of all fall back into the same rough total milligram range, more or less.
What would you say is that rough range that we all seem to drift
again,
into?
I'm going to go open bodybuilder because I'm saying no restrictions. We don't have to worry about weight class, water retention. We don't really even have to worry about midsection quite as much as classic would or something. So we have freedom just to add size, 2 to 3 grams a week. For most people, you'll
total.
I find, what I find, and again, none of this is hard. When I say this, I'm not saying this is fact. I'm saying I've worked with enough people for enough years that I get an idea of what most people respond to. And for most people, there's a very clear increase in results to higher doses. So natural, 200 milligrams a week, 500 milligrams. But once you get, it varies for everyone, but for about 85% of the population, you're going to get somewhere in the 2 to 3 grams of total milligrams per week range. And you're going to start realizing that when you go higher in dose, nothing more happens. You don't grow better. And I don't know what that range is. And it's not for everyone. Some guys can go higher. Some guys, most people be shocked at how low some of the genetic freak Okram and pros take their doses because they just don't need to. And there's also guys that'll go much higher. But most people, and if you follow any of those really high dose guys, if you follow them for 5 years and they're still talking about the doses, you'll see it kind of settle in that range most of the time. And you don't have to believe me. You can absolutely not believe me, and you shouldn't believe me because everyone needs to get all that out of the system. Because until you really believe yourself that taking more doesn't guarantee more growth, you're always going to want to try more. And until you've tried every possible cycle, that's always going to be in your mind. And that can take, you can ruin a career by spending a decade always thinking the next cycle's the magic when it isn't. So go ahead and try the crazy cycle. What you're going to find is that it's somewhere in that range. Like that's why I said 1,000 milligrams a test, 800 milligrams a primo, or 1,200 test, 1,000 primo, because that's kind of where everyone ends up. They go, they hit that mark, and they keep trying to go higher, you know, sometimes even for a couple off seasons before they realize, like, I got nothing extra above that range or wherever that is. But for most people, it's somewhere in that 2 to 3 gram mark, it seems like.
That's what my discussion with Ian Valair, discussion with Fuad Abiad, discussion with, I can't even, like, there's so many pros, so many Olympians too that I've discussed this with, where it seems like the range is the same. Normally we discuss test base, for example, and it's like 750 to 1.5 grams of test alone. So if you're adding the secondary compound, that comes out around somewhere between like what, say like 1750 to 3 grams total.
And that's not saying guys won't take more. But I am saying that if they were very honest with themselves and look back over their data, they'll see that their increased rate of growth correlated with increased dose topped off around that 2 to 3 mark. They might still take more, but they're not growing faster because of it. I don't feel like.
What you last said too about the whole, like, get that out of your head that like, oh my God, like I got this much, the more that I could possibly do, and it'll cause me to grow. One of my favorite things was a Ziegler Monster. I don't know if you know him. Said on my podcast, Ziegler Monster.
His first name's not Adam, is it?
I feel like that is his first name.
I might have known him 25 years ago before he was a bodybuilder. Yeah, I got to look him up. I don't know him, but that's hilarious if it can't be. But he was one of my, like, the first guy I met who was also really into bodybuilding. We were in college. He went to a different college. That'd be weird. Is he my age? Is he 40s?
Yeah.
That's fucking wild. That'd be crazy.
Hold on. What is it? Oh, wait. No, his first name is David.
I was going to say, because there's not that many Zieglers. So I heard that name. I'm like, I've never heard another Ziegler.
Yeah. Well, anyways, basically what he said was, like throughout a lot of his career, I think he was, I don't remember exactly what the numbers are, if it was total or if it was just test, but let's just say it was just test. I think he was saying he was running around about 1 gram of test. And as he was doing it, he was making good progress, but in his head, he'd always be like, mega doses in my pocket, mega doses in my pocket. If I ever need, I'll go to the mega doses. And he finally did, jumped to, I think, maybe 2 grams or so. And he said his rate of progress, like the actual rate of progress throughout that next year, was no different.
No. And at worst case, it can stall. Like, I've seen guys where they really push and they get so bogged down, so much water retention, they start losing their appetite. If you get to so much water retention that, like, if you get an echo and your ejection fraction is at 45%, you could still technically have normal function, be filtering your kidneys and everything perfectly. But there's so much water pressure affecting the function of the circulatory system that there's no chance you're maximizing your training and everything involved with that. So, I mean, and I think that's just kind of what happens is those things just start building and you just get to a point. I'm sure, obviously, he had more androgens. So there was that androgenic adaptation. There was more of it to occur. But if his lower back's so pumped that he's only getting 90% out of his leg work, it's like little things that's hard to even correlate. Or he does, where he might have been scraping the bowl and his meals where now he's got no appetite. And he gets, anybody who's been eating a lot knows they get to that point in the off season where it's like, I got 90% of it down. That's a full meal. Let me just throw you start doing that and you're shaving 100 calories every meal, which isn't hard. That's 500-600 calories a day. Boom, you're not growing, no matter how much you're taking.
Yeah, for sure. Facts. Real quick, guys. So while I was looking at the YouTube analytics, I actually saw that 85% of you guys that watch this channel are not subscribed. And I want to ask very little of you guys, but if you enjoy this podcast, if you find value in it, then please do me this one favor and subscribe to the channel, because doing so helps me get bigger and greater guests like the guests you are listening to today. Also, this channel is not sponsored, which means only the companies that I work with, which are Young LA and Huge Supplements, are the companies that can help fund this channel by you guys using the code NILE. So code NILE gives you a discount of 15% off of Young LA, and code NILE also gives you a discount of 10% off of Huge Supplements. And if you decide to purchase anything from any of these companies, it will help immensely for me by using my code. And this way, I can travel to other guests and also upgrade an equipment to make this podcast bigger and better for you guys. What about GH and insulin when it comes to the off season?
I have a very particular approach to insulin. I think insulin works. I think it didn't quite pan out to what we were all hoping it would be in the mid 90s. I think it's a great product, and I think it has a use case, but it's not a miracle worker. But it's another tool in the kit that basically everyone utilizes to some extent. A lot of guys stop using it kind of over time, long term, because it doesn't. It's interesting.
Yep. I've noticed that too. The amount of insulin use has decreased for sure. It's more of like a tool.
It's like you just find like it's like, well, man, I didn't. In a perfect world, so insulin can be perfect. Now, the way insulin works is insulin on any cell that's bound to insulin, it's storing those nutrients. You still are bound by thermodynamics. If you don't eat more calories than you burn, you're not going to store fat. It doesn't matter. So, but what you get is with insulin, you have the same number of calories, only now with insulin, you have a higher potentiation for storing those calories as glycogen in muscle. Maybe it's maybe it's micrograms difference per day, but micrograms per day, and you do that for 15 years, it does add up. The problem is that it's not a perfect world. And all it takes is if you misdose your insulin one time and eat a box of cereal to cover it, you fuck that meal up, you fuck the day up, you're not going to be hungry for your next meal, and you've had a much bigger negative impact on the day than insulin could ever have as a positive experience. So that's the issue. It's like the stock market. You got to be perfect. One bad break and it all goes away. It's like if you nail insulin, it's great. If you nail insulin too much and you have to pick out on a bunch of sugar, great. You just added body fat for no reason. Now the second half of your off season is worse than it needs to be.
Yeah.
Growth hormone's tricky because I think it's probably, you could argue it's the biggest impact over any length of time on a physique. It really does change a physique. I also think it probably ruined the sport to some extent. I think when GH was expensive and guys could either not run high doses or could really only run high doses for short period in prep, I think it was a great addition. I think once it became cheap enough where guys could run high doses year round, you're just getting the case we have now where like thin skin, structural changes, flat feet, neural adaptations from the neural compression similar to carpal tunnel. The guys will start losing their the brachioradialis. You see a lot of guys lose this muscle. They'll lose their triceps, they'll lose their outer quad sweep. And I think that's all due to nerve compression and reduced neural innervation of those muscles, which is what the carpal tunnel is. It's because it causes so much tissue swelling, it compresses the nerves, and that nerve gets compressed a little bit. And I think that's why you see a very common pathway. It's probably also related to spot injections, but you'll see the brachioradialis kind of fade off in a lot of older bodybuilders. See a lot of guys lose their quad sweep. Because growth hormone also reduces glycogen storage. So they'll have an overall flatter look to the physique at some point way in the future. And that's counterintuitive because it gives a full look today. You start taking growth hormone, you're full. 15 years, it's that glycogen synthesis pathway has been reversed so much that you're actually flatter all the time. So that's the problem. I think growth hormone's amazing when used in the right dose. I don't know what the right dose is. And I think if you take too much for too long, it can be a very detrimental aspect to your physique. The problem is if you are a client and you want to do 10 or 15 IUs of growth, I can't tell you that you won't be worse in September because of it, because you won't. You'll be better in September. And how do I say, look, yes, you will be better in September, but if you keep doing that, September of 2030, when you're now a pro, your physique's going to be falling apart. And you're not, that's the hard part with it. It's like synthol. Synthol, if there's lots of guys using synthol that you don't know, none of us know because they're using it correctly. But now if you always had weak biceps, for the last 10 years, all you're thinking, every workout, I want to grow these biceps. My biceps won't grow. And now you're putting something in them and they're growing every week. When do you decide they grew too much? We already have body dysmorphia. And I think that's what happens with synthol is the guys just keep injecting. And it's hard to say you wanted big biceps your whole life. Now you finally have big biceps, and now you're going to say, I don't want them to grow anymore. It's hard. And I think that's why guys go overboard with that. And it's kind of the same thing with GH. If I told you, even if you believed it, if I said you're going to be worse in 8 years, absolutely, a worse bodybuilder, and that should be your peak as a competitor, whatever. It might not be, but if you're at the right age, you're going to be worse, but you absolutely will be better the next 18 months and 2 years, 3 years. You're going to be, that's a hard, guys are like, why don't I turn pro now? I'll deal with the other stuff after. And so that's, I think, with GH. Yeah, more will work. I think you get above 10 IUs a day. And there's I don't know the length of time, but there's only so long you have. And you can look at guys. I hate to use the word Palomoism. I like Dave. But to use one word to get the idea of what I'm talking about, the acromegalic changes, you can pick any bodybuilder that had a breakout year. Cutler 2001, Ronnie 96, 97. I don't know, King Kamali was like 99. Pick any of those guys that were like decent, and then all of a sudden, boom. Pretty obvious they probably threw GH in the equation, right? Now go 10 years in the future, and what happens? It seems like those adaptations start rapidly accumulating, and like the quality of physique just starts taking hit. I don't know that they're linked, but I do know that if you track like Marcus Rule, any of these guys who just leapt forward, where it would imply that maybe they changed their cycle and maybe that's when they added high dose GH. You look 10 years later and you'll start to see. So that's kind of what I tell clients, as I say, if you're under 30, just be careful with the GH, use it. Don't go crazy. If you're over 30, probably doesn't matter, because by the time those effects hit, you'll be retired anyways. Yeah, it's the truth. So
yeah. What do you think is crazy then with GH? I guess I know it's hard to say, but
well, I hate using IUs because an IU is a volume measurement, not a dose measurement. We just have standardized it such that an IU is about, or 3 milligrams is about when I use it, a 3 milligram, like it'd be like 9.9 or whatever. We call it 10 IUs. A 5 milligram vial, we call it 15 IU vial. But probably like 5 to 10. I don't even want to say it, and it's not a hill I'll die on. I'm not going to ask any of my clients to hold back progress this year because I believe their progress will be worse in 5 years. But I do believe, and I've seen this enough, where guys are above the 10 IU mark most of the time they're on GH. Eventually they run into issues, widened waist, kind of like loss of roundness. Because part of the acromegaly is you get the soft tissue thickness, hands, wrists, brow ridge. That's all intramuscular space. If you take my shoulder and tricep, and in that space right there, that indent, and you add an inch of whatever, even if it's an inch of like skin, now I don't have any. Now my arms are flat. There's no, so you can take up more space with the GH, but it starts having those effects where it reduces kind of the pop, which is why a Flex Wheeler in 93 at 216 pounds can look like Flex Wheeler at 93 Arnold looked at 213 pounds, wherever he weighed. Where now that same look with high dose GH takes like 245, 250 to get that same kind of look. And it's just because you just carry a lot of extra like soft tissue mass. It's a weird compound because it doesn't really build muscle either. It does, because it increases fatty acid oxidation. And so again, thermodynamics, if you have any given calorie count and you stay at that calorie count, and this version of you burns more fat at that calorie count, you're going to store more other calories. And since GH doesn't increase glycogen synthesis, you have to store those extra calories as muscle. It's like magic. But it's a tough, because the numbers I don't know, but I think it's around the 10 IU mark. If you're under 30, just be careful with that number.
Yeah, I think what you say aligns with my beliefs as well as what Dom Superslice presses about his belief on how GH should be used. I guess the hard thing is when someone should be using it, like which off season, if they are using it in off season. Seems like some people, like Evan Santapani, maybe even Dom, would be more proponents of using it during prep. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of tough, I think.
Yeah. Well, just as a general rule, if it's one or the other, always use higher doses and always use more gear when dieting, because you can still build muscle in a calorie deficit, especially when blood androgen levels are high, and especially while they're climbing, which would be the first several weeks of increasing a cycle rate. So, and you can grow in a calorie surplus even with reduced hormone levels. So if you want to cram the most total milligrams of gear into a career and come out healthy at the end of it all, stack your gear more towards the dieting. That really, because it's like a cheat code, because you can add muscle while you're burning fat. If you add 1 pound of muscle, that's that many calories of fat that you have to lose because you've stored those calories. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
I wanted to ask this earlier and I forgot, but since we discussed the potential range that people tend to drift into as open bodybuilders, what would you say about classic bodybuilders?
Well, because it's so weight class dependent, it can be, if it's someone who has no problem making weight, there's no different, because the non-classical physique changes are a long-term effect of high doses. So, and a lot of, like, classical is newer to begin with. there are a lot of older guys who should, but a lot of the young guys coming up, they don't. I can explain all these issues to them. If they have room in the weight cap to make weight, and that future body changes is way in the future, they're running off-season stuff. But if you got a guy like, from what I've heard of, like someone like a Chris Bumstead, I've heard his was pretty low. I've had some clients who should be open, but really want to stay classic, who will do, we're talking like 500 Masteron and nothing else in prep towards the end, like just to artificially force their weight down. And again, it goes back to the fact that it's a body fat contest, not a muscle contest. And the most extreme case I had is the client, Brian Shell. This is, it was like 2005. He was a romance novel cover model. He looked exactly like it, just like this. Like it looked like that, like a Fabio, like a face that you obviously middle-aged women love. Big, thick eyebrows.
Middle-aged women love.
Yeah. So that's what he did. He's a really cool guy, but he injured his back really bad and couldn't train. Like needed surgery. Was struggling to walk, and he was depressed. And he had competed, and we won whatever his state show as a heavyweight. The year before, and he wanted to compete again, but he couldn't lift weights. So we did a prep. He did gear. He did everything. He did minimal cardio, what he could do, zero weight training, one light heavies. He was 20 pounds less on stage, but that was with no weight training, just by having no fat on his body. And so that's the thing. Like it's so hard because none of us compete until we've been lifting for years. So we spent 5 years 100% focused on adding enough muscle so we feel like we're ready to compete. And then when you compete, it's a different sport. Muscle matters, but it only matters if you have no body fat. It's a weird sport. Yeah. Just get shredded and the rest solves itself.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny. I'm actually on the opposite side of that. I competed so much and then like stayed shredded for so many years. And now I'm like the farthest below the weight cap.
Oh yeah.
On the classic stage still. I still have 17 pounds to gain if I don't take Winstrol, 15 if I do. So something I got to figure out.
Fun. You could do that.
That's true though.
You could do that one off season.
Wait, you really think so?
Oh yeah. Yeah, you could do that. You would be that size. You could put that size on in 6 weeks after a contest. It wouldn't be real because it would be mostly like non-permanent sarcoplasmic adaptations, but then we'd spend the next 5 months utilizing that infrastructure to create the myofibrillar adaptations. And I think absolutely, and I'm not saying like to like make bold claims or anything. I have like dozens. I've turned probably 50. I probably added 100 pounds on at least 50 guys. It's hard to even think back over the years, but I'm known as I coach super heavy open guys. I don't coach super heavy open guys. All my guys become super heavy open guys. They all start as middleweights or whatever, but I don't coach super heavies. I don't like, yeah, you absolutely could. You'd have to be all in, obsessed. You'd have to spend 6 weeks. You're basically extending your contest prep another month to 6 weeks because you're going to have that level of focus. But if you did that, absolutely, you could do it in a year.
It's so cool. You and Patrick actually have so many common so many common ideologies.
Oh yeah. I don't know that. I haven't talked to him much at all. I'm sure I've talked to him, but I've never had I'd like to do like a talk with him because I've heard that, and what I hear from him, I like his thoughts on most things. Chris Tuttle too. I did a podcast with him once. I liked him. We ended up talking mostly business though, because he was getting into real estate and stuff, and so yeah. But I liked him too. And there's a lot of guys. The current coaching world, it seems much more friendly. It used to be like much more WWE, I think, like when there was the magazines and stuff, because they'd really kind of push that. But everyone kind of like much more friendly now. Like I'm excited about the Arnold partly because I get to talk to so many guys and we'll just kind of like like share little tips because you're always learning new things or little
right.
Like hey, you used to like the Winstrol in prep, like it's pretty standard now. It used to be halotestin. People used to try check drops, but like an androgen load at the end of prep. And that's something like, yeah. So like it's pretty standard now to where now guys are just kind of discussing doses differences, hey, so that's fun. And you used to not get that with coaching at all. You used to get the opposite.
Right.
Like that previous crew that was like that whole like Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler era, maybe Phil, like if you remember all those coaches, they're still around, but they're getting old now. Yeah. That was like it was probably because of the message boards, but it was much more like calling each other out and just being dicks to each other. Much more friendly now.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I do really love the bodybuilding community now. Really, for sure. Like, I even just love
so
going
much
to
better
Vegas
than it used to be. Yeah, I'm glad. I hated that. Like And so I just want to like get a microphone at like the Arnold one year and be like, all right, everyone, I know we're all insecure. We all have body dysmorphia. We all hate the guy that's got bigger muscles than us. We're all in the same sport. Let's like learn from each other.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's also thanks to all of you guys for listening to the podcast and supporting it. So now we got people talking about it. But last thing I wanted to ask before we jump to the Q&A, but in terms of calorie increase and where we're going to set the calories as a surplus, say that you have, for example, I don't know, like a 3,500 calorie maintenance for a guy, and they're coming off of prep. Where would you want to start their calories at, and then how would that change over the course of an off season? Say it's a year long.
This might not be accurate because I've done this so long. At one point when I started, I had like formulas, and you do it long enough, I just kind of know. So I don't even know what my calories are anymore with guys. But if someone's at 3,500 as a baseline, is that 3,500 with the cardio and everything they were doing in prep and fat burners, or just true BMR?
I would just say true BMR.
True BMR. So we'll look. I'll just numbers, just whether this is true or not, what you were thinking. I'll say 3,500 big guy, 265. We're talking big guy because I'm saying 3,500, meaning he gets up to 4,500 calories on a leg day. And if we add 200 calories of cardio, that's 4,700 calories. We're probably going at least $5,000 through the rebound. So Whoa. Technically, but it's 300 calories true surplus. And it might even be less because he's carrying more body weight. If he gains 40 pounds of like water and fluid and stuff in this rebound, you walk around with a 40-pound vest on, you're going to burn more calories. And then each pound of muscle is like another 50 calories a day. That as it's getting added, it's burning, and we don't know that it's happening until we notice that growth is slowed or whatever. But about that range, so it sounds like a huge jump, but if you actually do the numbers, we're talking 300 calorie bump, and that's for the rebound. In the off season, it's going to be much closer to baseline, to where we're talking maybe 300 or 500 or even more on a high day, but on a medium day, like 100, 200, and on a low day, maybe even like 100 deficit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Got it. All right. Let's jump to this Q&A. I mean, do you normally see those calories go up a lot higher by the end of the off season?
Yeah, I need to put it up again somewhere. I did a little ebook called Making a Mass Monster or something. It was when Making a Murderer was out. And there's a guy named Adam, and he was a natural guy with a sluggish metabolism. And he was serious. He was sick of like having to eat no carbs just to be skinny fat. He's jacked now. He's a client now on TRT. But I want to say, I have him. I could look him up, but I want to say he went from like an 1,800 calorie medium day low at our start, where he was like self-starving, to like 4,800 calories on me day, 4,700 calories. We had all 18 months tracked and each diet listed up on Myoplasmic when that site was up years ago. But I'll put that up again somewhere. But it shows exactly step by step what I was thinking. We start pushing the high day. We see how we respond. We believe he's added some muscle. We believe also some metabolic insufficiencies because we've added all these calories. You throw like Nathan's hot dog eating. When Joey Chestnuts eats 75 hot dogs, he's getting a lot of calories. He's not getting the exact calorie count in 75 hot dogs. He's shitting out a lot of it because a lot of that gets to the colon before calories were extracted from it. So when you ramp up calories, you get some increased rate of inefficiency of calorie absorption. So there's also, we test that and we see, okay, we pump the high day. He's soaking that glycogen up. He doesn't look watery. It looks like he's probably adding muscle. Let's toy with the medium day. We add the medium day. We sit there for a while and he's baseline. It's like, well, maybe we're at a new baseline. Let's set a new low day BMR baseline. And you just cycle through that, it's methodical and boring, but that's what the sport is. It's like the movie Groundhog Day. Who can do that the best? Repeat the same fucking day every day.
I guess I'm just so curious how competitors will gain that much fat if you ramp up calories that high, which also is a reason why I believe, people created that reverse diet, years ago. Mm-hmm. And being a competitor myself, obviously that's one of my biggest fears, right? Is just like getting way too fat right after prep.
Well, we can do the numbers. The nice thing is you always, on the way up, you have everything working for you. On the way down, you have it working against you. Every pound you lose is less calories you burn. So every time you get leaner, your natural BMR and your NEAT decreases. So you're like walking on a reverse treadmill. The opposite happens when you're growing. anytime you add calories, there's more inefficiency, more percentage gets passed through undigested. So so there's that growing also. So if I add 500 calories, I'm not adding 500 calories at the end. Maybe 490 of them get absorbed compared to what 500 would have been, because of the inefficiency. So we said we did a 300 calorie true increase. And that was a high day. So that was a specific day. A medium day would be lower. We do a 300 calorie specific increase. There's 3,500 calories in a pound of fat, right? So if we say there's no muscle growth whatsoever, I give you that diet and you gain zero muscle, pure fat, you only gain fat. That's a pound of fat every 12 days, right? So our rebound is so it's almost 2 weeks. So a pound of fat every 2 weeks. Our rebound's 4 weeks. You gain 2 pounds of fat if you gain zero muscle and stored pure fat. So, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I like. So, and I would suggest this because I didn't do this when I was younger. I don't know what made me start to do this. Probably when I went back to math and had to recheck my work, like, or for physics to check, do my units work? Does the answer make sense? Yeah. And so ever since then, that's how I came on the protein thing. I was like, how much protein do we really need? I don't know. Well, how much muscle is protein, So, okay, if I gain 10 pounds of muscle, that's, that's 5,000 kilograms or 5,000 grams, right? 10 pounds of muscle. So I do 5,000 divided by 365. And I do the math. When I did that, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? That's like 19 grams of protein a day. That's all I'm saying. And then I was like, oh shit, that's myofibril. Only 30% is myofibrillar. I'm like, so we're only synthesizing 5 grams of protein a day to gain 10 pounds of muscle in 365 days. And those are the numbers. And so then I was like, oh shit. So obviously we need more protein, but that's all the protein we're actually building muscle from. The rest of the protein does other stuff. I'm not going to risk it. I'm not going to go low protein because I know if I'm low on blood aminos, I'm not building any muscle. So I know I need some level of surplus. I don't know what it is, but like you do things like that and you start realizing, well, maybe 600 grams of protein isn't automatically better than 400 grams. Maybe if I'm at 400 grams and I'm only actually synthesizing 5 grams on any given day, maybe I should look to carbs or fats or some other way to optimize the diet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right. Jay Lives asks, any training methods you've changed your mind on?
Yeah, I've really shifted on progressive overload. I still like progressive overload. I think it's just the type of people who get into the sport. I'll just give an example. If I'm squatting 400 pounds for 5 right now with perfect bodybuilding form, next week I can squat 400 pounds for 6 guaranteed if I widen my stance and put the bar lower on my back. The next week I can get 7 if I wrap my knees. The next week I can get 8 if I wear a powerlifting belt and I put my feet even wider and I wear wrestling. You know what I mean? And so like the problem with progressive overload is why are we doing the exercise? We're doing the exercise to work the muscle, not move the weight. If the muscle moves the weight, then yes, as we get stronger, that muscle moves the weight to get stronger. But it's really easy to fall into a trap where you're focused on the weight and you end up using the correct muscle less by changing your form. So I like progressive overload and heavy lifting and always looking to get stronger because it's a clear metric for progress. Yeah. You can't just add volume forever. It's hard to tell whether I got a better pump than I did last time. So I like that just because it's like, all right, if I did, because I can still remember all my numbers, like towards the end of my career, right when I was at my peak, I think 635 for like 8 would have been like on my ramp up on my last off season for squat, And so I know like 635 for 8, I didn't always do that. I did, 405 for 8 at one point, and I guarantee my legs are smaller when I did 405 for 8. I can't guarantee that that's the optimal way to grow, though. So I like that, but it's a slippery slope because you can get too focused on the weight and less focused on the muscle. Because that's the most important. If you compete on stage with your physique, that's all that matters. If you think about it, an exercise means nothing. You're not doing a lateral raise. You're training side delts. If doing this somehow targeted your lateral delt for some reason, if you have some weird body composition where you did this weird wave motion with your arm and it fried your side delts, that's your side delt movement. Other people need to do lateral raises. But a lateral raise is just a tool to work the side delts. And that's the most important thing to remember with training. And that's the biggest shift mine has had because I came from sports. And so my focus was always on the movement. And luckily I did the movement with a good enough form to actually work the target muscle. But for a long portion of my career, I didn't even think about that. I just wanted to get stronger in bench. Luckily, chest typically does, but it doesn't guarantee. And it bit me on legs because my legs were a weak body part, despite them being very strong, because I drifted towards that. My first, squats at the beginning of my career were high bar, close stance. And by the end, my feet were wider. I was wearing wrestling shoes. I was wrapping my knees up, so.
Yeah. Sad 405, 48 is what I was doing on back squats. Fucking.
That's the
so,
other.
so
that's
small.
the biggest. The truth is, and I hate admitting it because I don't want it to be true. The biggest change to my training was that you didn't like a properly executed 405 for 8 is going to be better for quad growth than 635 for 8. Probably the way I was doing it because I wasn't training my quads. I was a power lifter. I was using my ass and my lower back and my adductors. You know.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. Something that I actually had to learn too when I had to focus on my leg growth these last 2 years, and then I realized honestly it was a lot better for me to just prioritize my quad growth by doing the close stance on hack squats and then not having as much fatigue going into stabilizing and
That's a perfect standard deviation example because hack squats for probably like 85% of the population are a great quad sweep movement, but some people they aren't. And I hate this because I see so many. I don't even know, hundreds of guys over the years on Instagram, good bodybuilders with poor quad sweep, trying to bring up the quad sweep with hack squats. And you want to be like, dude, it's year 6. Like try a different movement. Those aren't. Maybe you can't grow outer quads. Maybe that is the best movement for your outer quads, but it hasn't been working. So you're trying to train outer quads. You're not trying to be a hack squatter. Pick something else. For most people, hack squat is going to work, but that's like the thinking. If it's not working, don't think you have to do this movement. You have to train your quad sweep. Find a different movement that works your quad sweep. And it might be a weird one. You know, I found like people always comment on my triceps. They were always a better body part for me. I never did close grip and I never did dips for triceps. Almost all my tricep work was elbow up, like overhead, skull crusher, overhead type stuff. Because I really felt that in the long run of my triceps. Any pushing dips or close grip was all shoulder for me, shoulder, little chest. So, dips are a great mass builder for 85% of the population, but for me, they weren't.
I'm actually a little bit like you too. Plus, I mean, what focused and what was best for you is kind of along the lines of doing like stretch mediated hypertrophy anyways. Yeah. Having your elbows above your head.
Which I got shit for back then. And then now it's funny because that was during the time during the shortened contractions, was it SSB? That was the time when Big Beyond Belief, where they were talking about it's only load. So why do a whole range of motion if you can do 5 times the load for a quarter? So I was arguing for like what people are arguing now, which may be wrong in 5 more years, but at a time when everyone was saying the opposite. So it's nice to be vindicated. Don't be a bodybuilder. I mean, well, because like little old ladies live to 100. Big jack dudes don't. It's just a natural fact. Body mass is hard on the processes that get degraded with age. But so it's blood pressure. Really, I mean, that's the core of it. Because we bodybuilders, if you're like, and another guy just died. I don't know what what it was, but it's almost always related to end-stage pulmonary edema, related to congestive heart failure, which is a secondary to renal failure, which is secondary to long-standing hypertension. You get high blood pressure, it blows out you have a high-pressure water hose pouring into your kidney filter over and over. That filter gets degraded. Toxins build up, water retention builds up. You start seeing guys with swollen ankles. That stresses the heart. The heart has to push against that higher pressure. The heart gets weakened. Eventually, it's in heart failure. Anytime you have swollen ankles, you're technically in heart failure. Heart failure just means your heart isn't keeping up with the circulatory demands. It doesn't have to be chronic unless it stays that way forever. If you get bloated and then in the morning you wake up, you were in heart failure that night, but it wasn't chronic. But eventually that happens and fluid builds up. And the last thing, it's like, I hate this because I've seen this so many times over the years. You hear a wife or a loved one talking about their bodybuilder spouse's death. And it's always, he had this chest cold, or he thought he had pneumonia, but he felt like he was getting better, was getting over it. It's always that pneumonia is end-stage pulmonary edema from congestive heart failure, from renal failure, from hypertension. That's real. That's not a catch-all, but again, standard deviation. Most people, if you keep your blood pressure under control, you can be kind of a jackass with bodybuilding and come out alive at the end.
Gotcha. Okay. For managing blood pressure, what would be your main recommendations?
Medication. Don't just just treat it. Don't try to treat it with nutritional. If you have high blood pressure, I can understand not wanting medical help and wanting to do things naturally and organically, whatever. But if you have high blood pressure, get it treated, then try to fix it. But I like ACE inhibitors or ARBs to start. Because it gives you some protein and some proteinuria protection, which is really helpful. You get, I mean, I think like I remember even one time trying to get bodybuilders to take blood pressure medication because for a long time I think they thought like the pressure was good for building muscle. I don't know, but I found something that implied that ACE inhibitors could increase IGF-1 production. So there you go. Get on lisinopril, you might get higher IGF-1 production. Or telmisartan is an ARB. They work, angiotensin, renin. That whole angiotensin converting enzyme, angiotensin renin, that's the ACE or the ARB. That's the angiotensin world. If you need a secondary line of effect, I like a calcium channel blocker, amlodipine, because that then you're almost kind of getting the ARB or ACE inhibitor protecting the kidney on one side and kind of helping against proteinuria, and then amlodipine sort of kind of on the other end. So you kind of get, that kind of covers you. If you need anything beyond that, like a beta blocker, I don't like beta blockers for performance because obviously we take beta agonists in prep, but like in nebivolol, that doesn't have so much beta 3 action. That's really about it. If you get to where you need like cardizem or like a diuretic, I would start looking at what's causing the blood pressure to be so high, and it's probably water retention. You're probably doing orals. You're probably not doing test and primolol.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
So ARB or ACE inhibitor, first line, second line, amlodipine.
Carbivore Woo asks about peptides. Are there any peptides that you're a proponent of now?
Yeah, I'm just like, they're like, I've used the term deck chair on the Titanic, like you put another deck chair on that cruise ship. Yeah, it changes the cruise ship, but not really. So they're not going to turn you pro. They're not going to be, but they do have use cases like MOTS, I always call it Slurp. Slurp. They do, yeah, they do show benefit for fat loss. Oddly enough, cardarine, which is like the cancer risk, I don't know where that's at, right. But I've seen that dramatically improve HDL. Interesting. If you got, I had a guy with an HDL of 7 at the end of prep. I think their HDL was 36 on, I think it was like 20 milligrams, a decent but for 4 weeks. I was really amazed by it. Reta, Trutide, great. I don't like it in the off season. I think it maybe has a use case, but I think same thing with synthol and GH. It's too easy to start ramping up the dose too high, and the next thing you know, you can't eat, and and then you might have a month where you can't eat before it fully corrects itself. That's kind of it. I mean, like you need MK677, GHRP6 if you need to eat. If anyone wants so just for shock value, maybe so you can have a clip. If you really need to eat, if you can't eat, if you do 25 or 50 milligrams of MK677, and then you do 500 micrograms of GHRP6 intravenously 10 minutes before meals, before 3 meals of the day, you will absolutely be able to eat. That would be a short-term protocol for someone who had their appetite absolutely ruined by Reta to where they're eating like 800 calories a day when they need 4,500. If you're in that case, MK, IV, GHRP6, I don't say that though. Not that the injection protocol matters. If you're putting it in your body, you're putting it in your body, but IV will have a very strong impact within 10 minutes and you'll be hungry no matter what suppression had you going on.
Okay. Got it.
There's more. I mean, yeah, there's more, but as a general rule, peptides, they're like a supplement, when guys first use steroids, they start bashing supplement companies. You're like, oh, fucking loser, you take steroids. Like, yeah, I take steroids, but I also take supplements. And with troponin supplements, if you look at the supplements we have, who benefits more from an intra-workout than someone on PEDs? Who needs berberine or a GDA more than someone on GH? Who needs renal, liver health or kidney health more than someone? So all my stuff is supplements for people on PEDs. Peptides are kind of the same. They're not going to replace PEDs in any way, as far as I can tell, but they are a nice addition for use cases. Agreed.
Vincent N2 asks best foods for carbing up.
Yeah. Best as a coach. See, as a person, best is for you. As a coach, best is I can't fuck someone's prep up. So I have to go. I like rice. They're very hypoallergenic, easy to get down. You can control the water volume. You can use rice. You can use rice cakes. You can use cream of rice. We have an extra level of control. And then it's not electrolyte laden. Like potatoes are a great carb source, very high potassium. If you carb up on potatoes and then you take a potassium sparing diuretic, you could be fucked. So, so it gives us all the good stuff, gives the carbs a nice complex carb source, with almost zero risk. But that's really the only reason I like rice. I think a lot of people do well in fruit. I find fructose, oddly enough, even though it should go to fill liver glycogen, seems to restore muscle glycogen better when you're depleted in glycogen. And I think it's probably somehow related to the fact once liver glycogen is saturated, then as far as the liver and the body is concerned, blood sugar stabilization is taken care of because the liver glycogen will control blood sugar. So I think at that point, the body just says, we don't have to worry about that. Blood sugar is taken under control, liver glycogen under control. Any extra carbs can go to the muscle now. So I think it's probably something like that. But it's not something I really like push to where I'm like having guys load fructose. I don't mind fruit during a carb up for that reason.
Right. At least just having, continuing to have some variance, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know how long it'll take for you to like eliminate fruit from your diet until your gut microbiome starts.
My guys eat fruit. So that's the thing. My guys have fruit and a cheat meal, most of them up until 2 weeks out. Cheat meal once a week, and we have fruit for up to 50% or sugary carbs. On our high day, up to 50% of the carbs in each meal can come from non-complex sources. Now, they might, if you have 150 grams of carbs in a meal, that's 75 complex, 75 sugar. So it's just that we have so many carbs, and if half of them are complex, insulin's increased. We have carbs in our body all day. At that point, some sugars doesn't matter anymore. There's always carbs in the blood.
Okay, cool. Kintsugi84 asks, muscle full effect / MPS cap / spreading protein out to avoid this.
So what was the first one? The water retention cap?
Muscle full effect / MPS cap. Yeah.
So really, okay, so we didn't do the math, but anyone who doesn't believe me, take 1 pound, convert it to grams, divide that by 365, and then multiply by 0.3 or divide by 0.7 for 70%. And and get that number. That's how many grams of protein each day is turning to muscle. It's a very small number. So logically, we would say that, well, we're only getting a couple grams, a couple grams a day, less than a gram an hour. I want to make sure there's never a period of time where I don't have elevated blood aminos. So for protein, it should be all constant, steady. I don't care about 6 meals a day, 5 meals a day. I do care that you get protein in at least 4 or 5 times a day in even intervals, and whole food protein. So that's taken care of. The fullness, fullness is at the time thing. The only time fullness really matters, other than you liked how you look in the mirror, is on stage. So it's a really non-player, because it's something that doesn't affect our long-term progress. It's a short-term thing that makes you feel good in the gym, and we get those on high days anyways. What was the third one?
It was just how to avoid that. Tips on how to avoid that. So you just want steady protein. Or the spread protein,
Yeah, steady protein evenly throughout the day. Target your carbs around training. And if you carb cycle, either work with someone who knows it or learn how the body processes carbs so you know when to put more carbs and less carbs. And that's really, it sucks because we all do these podcasts and we talk, but the human body doesn't change from week to week. And the truth is 99% of the stuff we do, the success results come from doing the boring basic stuff. Test Primobolan, meat, rice, repeat, pick a kill, grow it, and get stronger in the gym. Don't get fat, just real loose general stuff. For most people, if you just ate lean meat, which would be 96.4 ground beef, maybe a flank steak, sirloin, to chicken, turkey, those types of proteins, potatoes, rice, oatmeal for carbs, guacamole, maybe some nuts for fat. Most people can pretty much just eat when they're hungry until they're full, as often as they're hungry, and maintain 8 to 12% body fat all the time, just because hunger levels are dictated to some extent by taste, and those things don't taste that great. That you're kind of limiting your hunger to true hunger, and you're supplying the maybe not the perfect proportions, but you're supplying the complete proteins and complex carbohydrates and essential fatty acids for growth.
Got it.
Oh, man, I'm terrible with tangents on this. You're gonna have to do some editing.
No, we love the we love the tangents. That's what we want.
I get 5 minutes in, and I'm I'm talking to my son. I'm like, dude, cut it off. And it takes 8 more minutes.
No, you're good, bro. We're here for the info. Speaking of, KST Mario said, "Holy shit, I loved his pod. So glad he's back." Win guest
list. Are we live?
So. No, we're not. But
okay, good. Because you're gonna fix this thing on my chin in post process, right?
Antonin did ask a question. I'm gonna kind of adjust just a little bit. he's kind of asking about you liking orals, and we kind of discussed that already. But what is your opinion on the oral use for peak week?
I like high dose androgens. I've tried everything. I've tried high dose halotestin, 2 weeks, 10 days, 4 weeks, check drops. I've kind of settled on Winstrol about 10 days out. Whether or not we're using it in prep, we'll add it. And I'm just looking at, I've tried Anadrol, much shorter, like 4-day GH load. What I've kind of learned as a general rule is, as a competitor, mentally, you want to be full. And you're always looking for things that make you look full, because that's what feels good. But that doesn't translate to better placings. Dryness always does. So I've kind of, I just kind of stopped experimenting with the fullness and stick to dryness. So yeah, Winstrol. I like high dose Winstrol. I don't know if I should say a number, but at least 100 milligrams, and probably not more than 200, but at least 100 milligrams the last 10 days per day.
Gotcha. Winstrol is my favorite too. Patrick had me not doing Winstrol, and then I convinced him to let me add the Winstrol. Obviously, after 6 weeks and then ramping up to 50 milligrams, I started having some GI distress, and it was hard to carb up. But for sure, it was like the best look and the best placement I got.
I think Paul
according
Barnett,
to the judges, at least.
I think Paul Barnett did the same with me, because I like Winstrol and I've used it in prep, but like you said, you got like joint issues. It's terrible for GERD, for reflux, and so it's like, man, I don't like it. But I still am not a fan of like pushing it hard all prep and high. We might use it for like 6 or 8 weeks, but yeah, I like it. 10 days. By the time you get all the reflux and joint pain, the show's over and you don't care anymore.
Let's do one last question. Matt Black asks, what was a change he made in Brandon's protocol that made a big difference?
You want, man, this is, I don't know. Maybe this will sound like I have absolute confidence in my coaching. I didn't ask his previous protocol. I don't know what he did before. I mean, I kind of do, but I know what works, and I don't know what works. I do what works, like everyone's different. And so what did I change? This could be a whole podcast. Brandon's been wild, because we're on a third prep, and it's 3 completely different preps. I've been given all these answers saying, like, you say, like, what do you think? And I give like an exact answer. This is one guy, 3 completely different preps. I'll do what's needed. When we prepped for the Arnold last year, he came to me 12 weeks out. We hadn't worked in the off season. And his body wasn't responding. And so we went down to like veggie only carbs and 2 hours of cardio a day for stretches for the Arnold. The Olympia was completely different. The Olympia, first he was going to do the Masters Olympia. So we started prep a little early, but he was ready fucking early. So he was off season calories like the last month. And so I could have him even bigger at the Olympia, but he was as much as 15 pounds heavier than the Arnold the day before the Olympia. And I brought him down to about 10 pounds heavier, just because I was afraid if he was that full and he wasn't grainy, guys would say he should have been harder, but he could have been even fuller. And then now we're back to the third prep, which is completely different again. We started late and we're starving him again, but not with a ton of cardio, but pretty low calories, low carbs and low fat. It just, yeah. So I guess the biggest difference is that every time is different. I like carb cycling, but I don't even do that with every client. It's whatever works. And so for Brandon right now, what we need to do is we're grinding him hard, because I want him, because we're not behind, but like for the Olympia, he was almost stage ready at this point. So like that was a worry that like, shit, are we gonna be able to hold this? I want to get him, we're 6 weeks out. I want him essentially stage ready in 2 weeks. We should, but that gives me a 2-week buffer, because by 2 weeks out, I like to have calories back in. I like to eat guys in this show. I don't just carb up. I like a 2-week slow build up plus a carb up. Okay. That's another difference. Before the Arnold, Brandon was eating junk food, burgers, fries. We did like 4,000 calories across the carb up.
Crazy.
For the Olympia, I don't know that we went over, I think we might not even gone over 500 grams of carbs on any given day for the carb up, because he wasn't depleted. So yeah, I mean, it's a crappy answer, because like, what have you done?
No, but that's what makes the best coaches is like, you have to attack it at a different, depending on the situation. Yeah. And the situation changes crazy variably for bodybuilders,
Oh my God, well, all physique sports. I mean, partly just because the body size, but yeah, I mean, if you've coached, or even if you prepped yourself long enough, no 2 preps are the same. They just aren't. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's why I don't like trial peak runs. I really don't. And I'll do them sometimes with clients for their mental benefit, but I don't collect any data from it, because every peak is different. If we do a trial peak and it works perfect at 3 weeks out, and I just blindly say, all right, we know what works, let's implement this. The likelihood that that's going to work perfect for the show is not 100%. I can guarantee that. And I don't even know if it's 50%. So I just don't like, if you don't know how the human physiology works, if you don't know how digestion works, how glycogen synthesis occurs, and you haven't learned enough, even if you've only done a 12-week prep, if you haven't learned enough about that client in 3 weeks while you're bringing that guy down to basically near death levels of body fat, if you haven't learned his body by that time, but yeah, you got to do what people need, and it changes for every prep.
Okay, awesome. I have one last question I ask every guest at the end of every podcast, but if you were to disappear from the world tomorrow and you had one message you could send to the entire world today, what would the message be?
Oh, thank God. Like, am I dying, or am I like going off to like a mountain resort where no one knows I exist? You want to know the truth? Like, the truth is going to be like, it's so gay and sappy, but like, man, where's everyone so mean? You know, go open Twitter right now, or open any comment section on why? We're all going to die. I'm more than halfway through my life. I wore a purple belt to 7th grade because this is like cross colors. Idiot white kid in 7th grade. I wore a purple belt with like a purple suit to the 7th grade dance. That was 35 years ago. I remember everything about that outfit and feeling like an idiot thinking back to me wearing my purple outfit as a 12-year-old. In 35 years, I'll be dead. I remember where I stood in line to get my ticket for the dance. This shit all just goes so fast, you know. Like I mean, another bodybuilder just died. Think of who's your favorite action star when you're a kid. They're not movie stars anymore. Who's your favorite musician? Who's your they're in and out and they disappear. Like, this all so fast. Just, I wish people enjoyed life more. I wish we were like, life isn't a zero-sum game. I don't only benefit when you get harmed. You know, there's more cases where I benefit when you benefit, and we benefit together. And I wish, just as a general rule, we took just that approach to things. Like, yeah, it's not a win for me if I fuck you over, you know? Mm-hmm. It really is. And in most cases, if I help you succeed, it benefits me somehow. I just wish, just in general, and it's sappy and lame, and I probably don't listen to it myself because I'm sure I'm a dick to people unintentionally or probably even intentionally, but that's the biggest thing. I just wish we just had some perspective and be like, man, like, we're all going to die. Whatever you hate someone for right now, this is what I always thought when I go through hard times in life, like depression or anything, or where it just feels like every minute's taking forever. I would always just think, time's going to pass. COVID was 6 years ago, you know, in the blink of an eye, it's going to be 5 years. I just try to think, okay, in 5 years is going to happen. And in 5 years, I'm going to be standing there. I just don't want to do anything today where I feel like shit that makes my life worse in 5 years. And then if you think of it that way, then yeah, you still are depressed. Yeah, life is still hard. You don't want to get out of bed, but at least you're less self-destructive maybe. But yeah, I guess sappy, lame, and faggy, but I just wish people were nicer to each other.
Yeah.
Even if just for the exchange of information, we could be so much more advanced. Even if we just focus on this sport, we would know so much more if we were just helpful to each other. We'd all be better bodybuilders.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even there's a lot of people that are appreciative of this podcast and the guests that come on, but even then, just how much information and how much people are really giving on this podcast. There's still people out there that are just attack if they can.
Yeah, and I get that
sucks.
too. Because
I hate seeing that.
Yeah,
so.
I do too. And part of me, I get it because, especially in the forums, I used to have troll accounts. I would troll myself.
What?
Well, because I grew up without internet. I became an adult without internet. So like the internet was weird for me because it wasn't real. It just felt so not real. So it felt like I would go on there with a fake account and like make fun of myself because it was just fun. And I know like a lot of the troll stuff is just for the lulz, you know what I mean? Like old school meme, but like literally just, but a lot of it isn't. A lot of, like, and if you think about it, I've thought about this sometimes, like why are just our natural reaction to almost anything new? If I told you electric car, everyone listening is like, fuck electric cars, you know, it's like, yeah, I did too when I first heard it. But our just reaction to anything new is always like, yeah, fuck that, I hate that, you know? Like, or like AI, you know, who knows what it's going to become, but I just tried, I think like, yeah, rather than just have like a negative thought to everything, doesn't help any of us. And it's going to fall on deaf ears even for myself because I'm going to get off this and probably go bitch at my wife or something, and I'll go be a dick to someone, I'm sure. Can't help it, but I try to think about that. Like, just think like, man, like as you get older, life goes so fast.
No, I agree, man. I'm really glad you said that. I really am. And none of us know what our future is going to be, no matter what it is. Whether it's dying or whether it's something changing or your life just changes forever. You have a different path. You just don't know what it's going to be. So why not just give your best and be present with the people around you and give as much love as possible.
I love that. Your best. And I think I've for years, I've wanted to I'm not smart enough to think of a cool quote, but one time I was just thinking like I heard someone say something like about a sport and someone was doing good. And like someone made a snide comment, like, yeah, what are there, like 9 people that do that sport in the world? And I just remember thinking like, well, but this guy's still he's still giving everything he has to it. And then I was like, man, if you really think about it, everything's kind of equally hard. Like if you want to succeed, all you can do is work as hard as you can at it. And that's all you can do. It doesn't matter how hard the sport or the thing is, and some things are harder, but all you can do is just work. And I think all of us find, and bodybuilding is the perfect like case study for that. If you just keep working hard, and let time pass, like things change for the better.
Yeah.
Man, we might need to edit this out. I think I just
no. No, this is the best part. All right. Well, thank you for coming on, man. This was this was so cool.
That's
all
great.
the topics we talked about was
nervous.
everything
I don't know why I do these all the time. I don't know why I was nervous, but I had a good time last time. I
take it as a compliment.
I apologize to everyone for those rants. I started talking. I in my head, I know I'm talking too much. I still can't stop it.
Well, where can everybody find you, and how can people sign up for your coaching? Because I'm sure there'll be a lot of people.
If you go to booboo-tittyfuck69 at hotmail.com is my, I've told that story before. If you just search Justin Harris Nutrition, but Troponin Nutrition, Troponin Supplements, Troponin IQ, definitely. Can't say enough about Troponin. Can I just say this because it's driving me crazy? If you heard my phone beat, we sold a couple massive and shredded ebooks while we were doing this podcast. Those are $100. If you get Troponin IQ for $30, you get a full month of my brain. And on the homepage, there's a button that says massive. There's a button that says shredded. There's a button that says ascent. You press each of those buttons, and you'll get massive, shredded, and the ascent separate ebooks, each that you could buy for $100 with less value because the spreadsheet only uses your lean body mass. Troponin IQ uses all your information with that same base algorithm. So you could go right now, sign up for Troponin IQ, click those 3 buttons, get $300 worth of ebooks, cancel your thing for $30. I'm telling you, so like but for Troponin IQ for me is I just want people on there because I think it's our chance to get real, clear, serious research data because we can do it and we can reverse engineer it. I can look in 5 years, I can look 5 years past and see what progress people made. And we know compliance is 100% because I'm not making you go to some research institute once a month. I'm not asking if you're following the diet. I know you are because you're competing.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, man. Well, thank you for coming on again, dude. I'm sure people are going to love this. It was a crazy amount of information for this, and I think everyone's going to appreciate your perspective for sure. I
appreciate it. Yeah, I love your podcast too. So I would have you be on any time in the future. I think everything you're doing, I love what you're doing. I love like we talked about earlier. Your generation. I'm not that old, but your generation of the sport. Since Classic came in, I love the sports. Like it's improved so much. It used to be like a bunch of prima donnas who hated each other and backstabbed. And I don't know. If you would have asked me 10 years ago, I would have said it would have got worse once the Classic guys came in. But it's the complete opposite. The sport's way more fun than it used to be. Social media is getting fun again. It was like I hated social media for a while after the forums, but I'm having fun there. So life's good.
I'm feeling the same, man. I'm feeling the same. All right. I'll catch you soon, man. Thank you again, bro.
Right, cool. Thanks, man.
Peace.